What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Terror Table, a horror movie podcast. I'm one of your hosts here every single week. This is Mitch Oliver speaking, and with me, as always,
You are hearing the voice of Buzi.
Buzi.
It's so nice to see you. We're talking about 2022 in 2023.
Yes, looking back on the past like we're not supposed to. But no, yeah, this is this is the special episode let's be honest here. This is like our favorite episode of the year to record.
So much fun. It's just talking about, it's like when you get together with your friends, you're just like, my favorite movie is this and this and this, and then someone else is like, that's amazing, let me tell you mine.
Yeah, you can just be dorks and talk about all the shit that you loved from the previous year. So we're a little bit late on this. I think this is going to go up in the first week of February, but yeah, I think Buzi and I, we were talking before we started recording that we're going to just jump right into our top 10s, where normally we always talk about what we've seen, but this is going to be a juicy one. We're going to be talking about potentially 20 movies. After we're done our top 10s, we're going to share some, emails that we received from some kind listeners, some comments, all that kind of stuff. And we'll just see how we're feeling after this. But I am personally predicting that we have 3, maximum 4 movies in common this year. And I think that that's a beautiful thing, because that just shows that's a testament to the wide range of horror that, we cover on this show. And you and I, we have a lot of like similar tastes and everything, but this year has been so eclectic. There's been so many different kinds of horror. It was an incredible year for horror, both financially and just the quality that we were getting. There's so many great movies to talk about, but it would be kind of boring if we had like the exact same top 10s. And I don't think that's going to happen this year.
I don't think so either. I just kind of want to say that, I love that we do have a lot of this. There's a lot of similar things that tickle our brain, but at the same time, we go off in completely different directions. And I love that comes back into like pulling into these films that, like, I'm sure there's going to be 1 or 2 that on your list that I haven't heard of, or they're not even on my watch list, and I'm going to throw them on there because that's also one of my favorite parts of the show. Not just for our best of the years, but just in general. I think that's one of my favorite parts. And when we're talking to people, when we have guests on and stuff, it's just tell me some shit that I may not have heard of, because that's always exciting.
For sure. And I am going to spoil something for you, Buzi. That is a recurring theme that happens every year. And I love that. I think that that's going to happen more for me this year from you than the opposite. Like, I don't think there's a single movie on this list that you haven't seen
or heard of
or are interested in.
Right.
But I know you went, like we were talking, you went absolutely ham on Shudder over the last couple of weeks. So you've seen stuff that I haven't seen, and I'm excited to just talk about it.
I'm glad you noticed that. I did. I went ham on that. I was like, okay, I want to do this right. And I know that Shudder is doing a great job at just throwing a nice little list together of like, hey, these are some of the best things of 2022. So I tried to if I didn't finish watching a film, I at least picked through it enough to be like, okay, is this, you know what I mean? Like, does this have the roots of something I'd want to watch?
Okay.
Do you ever do that? Like,
no.
No, there's been times where I'll skim through something and then go back and rewatch it.
Oh no,
I did that for that fucking resort movie I was talking about the other week.
Yeah. No, I'm sure I've done that before, but I tend to, it's becoming easier and easier for me to turn off movies that I don't love, that I automatically know aren't going to be for me. And I think that is an incredibly disrespectful thing to do, but who has time to see all this shit? If you already know you're not going to like something, you're not the right demographic for it. If people like it, fucking sweet. You're not one of them, like
100%. Like Netflix has put out more stuff in the last 2 years than amount of time that I'll actually be alive.
For sure.
Do you know what I mean? They keep everywhere keeps putting shit out. I can't keep up with it.
I know. And it was a reoccurring theme that we would always joke about, like with Diego and Kyle, and you guys would always bug me. You're like, how do you watch all this shit? Well, things have changed for me. Like this year, I haven't been able to see as many things. And I noticed that
you got to be selective with your time.
Totally. But that's the thing is I'm excited to see the stuff that you took a shot on that, I didn't even get to this year. Cause I know, I know for a fact that you've seen more underground horror this year than I have. And I'm stoked on that. I want to hear the deets. I want to know what's good and
Shudder, baby. You know what? I even fucking, not that anything, maybe one thing made up my list from there, but I even went through like all of Tubi's like horror of what they released in 2022.
You always do that.
Just to see if there's another, like the Arbors in there. Shout out to Clayton.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Arbors is great. Clayton Whitmire, what a great dude. And very talented guy. I really hope he's working on something, because that was a shocker. Like you put that one on my radar, and I was like, God damn, this was actually really cool.
Yeah, it's and I think those ones are some of the ones that like make me the most excited, because they're like the most excited to also talk to us if we can find them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they're people who are just, like taking swings and trying to make independent films like what you and I are doing. Like we're both on that avenue. And let's quickly discuss, how did you go about formulating your list this year? Because I think it should go without saying that we always just try to generally talk about our top 10 favorites, the ones that we enjoyed the most. My number one, it isn't the standard, like the gold standard on this was the best horror movie of the year. It's my favorite horror movie of the year.
Right.
Like how did you go about it?
You know what? It's funny. I think that I don't put any stock into this stuff, but I really do. And a lot of it comes down to like, for me, it's a big part of it is like sticking power, like staying power overall is, from the start of the year to the end, are there even certain scenes, are there certain scenes that I can take away from a movie that just like stuck with me, or like plot points? I find that some of that is really where I can say like, okay, this is a good film, and then I can go back and go from there. And a lot of it too is, it's kind of funny to think about, is just overall craftsmanship. You kind of take that into consideration, but I also like to take into consideration like, hey, not everybody has like a, like let's say like a Jordan Peele budget for stuff. So it's, what did they create with what they had? And I think that's, I don't know if that's something that everyone takes into consideration, because at the end of the day, it's just a movie and you're there for the entertainment factor. But I try and, consider a lot of these things in that. And at the end of the day, it's just like, can this entertain me? Not just for the first time, but multiple times. I think that's why, something that it stays on your list versus, something that maybe just didn't make the cut, because you're like, okay, it's a good idea or concept or film in general, but it just doesn't have any staying power in your brain.
Yeah, no, totally. And one thing I want to touch on before we kick off is this obviously, like, this was a massive year for me. A lot of really exciting things happened thanks to, the Druid's Hand crew and yourself and Tara and Jesse and everything that happened with that. And the Terror Table listener base was a huge portion of who showed up for the Kickstarter. And I want to, once again, I know everyone's tired of it. I'm going to try and not, just talk about my own shit all the time, but I really appreciate it. And that did change the way I view movies. And I'm sure the same for you, because you're on the same trajectory where you're trying to get your own films made and you're constantly working, and that it changes the way that you watch movies. And this year has been insane for independent horror. And it's so exciting and it's so inspiring. And I want to say that, like, I chose to go with films that I enjoyed the most. And a part of my enjoyment might be the effect that they had on society and, like, audiences. But I do, with all the movies that I did choose, I do believe that they're actually just great movies as well. It's not just that they, blew up at the box office. They're things that I enjoyed. But if you don't mind, I actually kind of want to quickly run that down. Like, I wrote down 4 movies that just show you how huge horror is and how it's bigger than ever, particularly independent horror. Skinamarink, a movie that we may or may not talk about, is that movie had a $15,000 budget and is now made over $1 million this year.
Yeah, like, it is going ham. You see it everywhere.
Crazy. And it was a small little movie made in Edmonton, a small crew, and it's just unbelievable. Terrifier 2 was made for $250,000 and it made $13 million. I wrote this down a couple of weeks ago, so I'm sure it's even bigger now. Barbarian was on a $4.5 million budget and it grossed $45 million. Smile had a $17 million budget and made $216 million. That's the like, that's the big daddy of the year. And it's crazy. It shows that people are showing up for things that, like, obviously $17 million is nothing to scoff at. That's a real budget. But the fact that a movie like Smile was such a cultural touchstone this year is so exciting, and so like it feels validating for us, starting this podcast 6 years ago as dorks. And I know horror has always been big, but I do believe it's bigger than ever. And it's just really cool. So yeah, that's what I have to touch on before we get going.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, one last thing. I did choose to leave 3 incredible movies off of my list that live kind of on the fringes of horror in order to make room to highlight movies that are just straight up horror movies.
Okay.
So I want to start by quickly shouting those out. If any of these are on your list, I will eat my foot because I totally respect having them on your list. They should theoretically be on this list because these are all movies that definitely have heavy doses of horror, but I just chose to, like, they're going to show up on my non-horror list. But that's Bones and All, Luca Guadagnino's Bones and All. I fucking love that movie. It's gorgeous. Very strange of me to not have that movie in particular on this list because it ticks off so many of my soft spots. It's a road movie. It's beautiful. It's the young love and all this turmoil that goes with them being monsters. It's just awesome. I love that movie. The Menu was amazing. I really had a lot of fun with that. And I don't know if I'm going to end up talking. Yeah, no, I'm just not normally like an eat the rich kind of guy. Like those movies don't always do shit for me. But that one surprised me and it was a lot of fun. But I do feel like it definitely has heavy doses of horror, but I don't know if I call it a horror movie. And I respect people who would, but I don't know if I would. And the last one is Holy Spider, the Iranian serial killer movie. I'm not sure if you've seen it yet.
No, that sounds fun. Even dude, that title sounds fucking tight.
Dude, it is. That was a powerful, excruciating watch at times. I think it will be up your alley, but it is a true story about an Iranian serial killer who was, I believe, the Spider Killer. And he was killing sex workers, and he like killed 16 sex workers within the span of a year. And that's like the violence that you see. It was one of those movies that I thought that it was going to be more kind of like Silence of the Lambs, where it's more about the investigation rather than the killer, because
people a little more whimsical in that way.
Like, I don't know, less like it to me. And don't let this scare you off, because it has similarities, but it's not straight up like it. But it's more of like a Henry or an Angst or something like that, where you're kind of like, dude, the killer's in 80% of the movie. And the scenes where you watch him kill people, and it's really hard to watch and disturbing because it's so real, and especially knowing that this actually happened. It was a very, very powerful movie, and I do recommend it, but it won't be on this list because I don't know. I just feel weird. I want to highlight I want to highlight stuff that's like, it's undeniable that this is a horror movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's where I went with. But
I can appreciate. I don't really have any that I didn't leave off my list because one particular reason or another. I do want to give like a quick little shout out. I know it wasn't the like best movie, but it was a pretty serviceable little film, and we talked about it as like a sidebar on a couple episodes ago. But like shout out Fall for just being a tight little movie about being stuck in a place.
Yeah, it was a fun time. It's available wide now on Netflix.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's not fucking groundbreaking, but that was a fun little watch. I had fun with it.
And honestly, that movie could be in the same like, it obviously didn't clean up the way that Terrifier, Barbarian, Smile, all those movies did, but that movie was initially not meant to be the big release that it was. So that's one of those movies that kind of ticks off some of our soft spots, that we like those survival horror movies with really agitating, annoying characters who make dumb decisions, but it's fun. It's just a goofy, fun time.
It's fun watching other people be in scenarios you know that you would make just as equally bad decisions.
I wouldn't. There's no way I would never make half the decisions that those idiots in Fall made. But that's part of the fun of it.
That's true.
But yeah, without further ado, let's kick off. Buzi, can you, since I've talked so much, do you want to lead off with your number 10?
Right. Yeah, fuck yeah. Let's you know what? Let's finally get down to business. I just want to, for the listeners, we're a little extra excited about this just because we've tried to record this like
3 weeks.
Is this? Yeah, 3 weeks in a row. We're just shit kept coming up, and you know what? So we were so excited the other times to do it as well, and it just get stopped like last minute. So I'm fucking pretty stoked to get this going.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so my number 10 here. This is a film that I will say I'll give props to Mitch. He threw this one out there that I should check it out, and I did, and I enjoyed it so much that it made number 10 on my list. So that is John Hyams' Sick.
Isn't that 2023?
I thought that was this last year.
Uh-oh.
Is it not?
I'm pretty sure that's 2023.
Oh my God.
If it is,
hold on a sec. I'm gonna edit all this out if it is.
No, keep it in. That's fun, but you might just have to. Oh no, it says 2022.
I thought it was 2022.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe it was available.
You know what? We're kind of loose on the dates because we've done shit that's like been independent that we just finally got. So
yeah. Okay. No, cool, man. Go for it.
All right. You know what? It made the list after slight amounts of debate. So this was a Blumhouse film, and the plot is: due to the pandemic, Parker and her best friend decide to quarantine at the family lake house alone, or so they think. Or so they sing.
So they think. It was written by Kevin Williamson, the man who created Scream, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, Dawson's Creek, horror legend in his own right. So
have you seen this yet, Mitch?
Yeah, man, I really liked it. Like, I was surprised by how much fun I had with it. I didn't consider it as a 2022 movie, but that's my bad, because I thought that since I saw it in 2023, it was
right.
Yeah.
Your perception of time threw you off on that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that this is very interesting. It's really interesting, even being 3 years now out from like when the pandemic kind of started, because this film is shot at the start. It was entirely shot during the pandemic, and a lot of it at the start is kind of dealing with it, and that's kind of a plot line throughout, is these little moments. Like they talk about, like, putting on a mask. There's some really funny build-up scenes where people asking people to put on masks. I thought was kind of clever, and just something you haven't seen in a while.
One scene, like, the movie's pretty straight-faced, yes, which I appreciate about it. But at a certain point, it does give in to how ridiculous it all is, and that's what that's something I like about it. But there is a scene where the character in trouble trying to get into a car, being like, "Let me in." She's like, "Do you have a mask?" "No, I don't have a fucking mask." It was so much fun. I was laughing my ass off in like the last half hour of the movie, and I think that was the goal for them. But
yeah, I really appreciated that the killers themselves was kind of an interesting little spin with where they went with that, and I like that it wasn't an overly complicated story or like character design. You just have a couple people wearing balaclavas.
Yeah, and it's a slasher movie that shows the kills. That's all I ask. Like, if I'm gonna watch a slasher movie, let me see that carnage, baby. And you do in this one. There's some pretty visceral, brutal kills in this one.
Yeah, I was really impressed with it.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. Cool. Well, yeah, so Buzi's number 10, Sick. Sweet. Well, carrying on with tradition of that, my number 10 actually sort of ties into that. And it's my number 10 is Scream. So it is the latest Scream 5 from Radio Silence, the guys behind Ready or Not, and some of the VHS segment, one of the VHS segments. Look, man, I know this movie's not amazing by any means, and I'm going to be honest, I think I would rank it probably as my fourth favorite in the franchise, which I should get the elephant out of the room. I do need to apologize for my well-documented vitriol for Scream 4 over the years. Because
you really dogged Kyle on that one too.
I dogged the movie, but it was this year, 2020, or last year, 2022, that Scream 4 clicked for me. And it was like I was doing my annual, not even annual. I watch those movies. I watch that whole franchise at least once, at very least once a year, sometimes twice. I was so excited for Ghostface to return and to have this return to Woodsboro. And I've made it no secret how big of a fan I am of this franchise. There's only one movie in the whole franchise that I don't care for, and even that one has some fun moments. That's Scream 3. But this one, it was just, yeah, man, the gang was back. It brought back high school, like the high school establishing shots with like pop punk playing. Shout out Alkaline Trio and Creeper were in the soundtrack, I felt so like over the moon when I was watching that because it brought me back to my youth. And Scream was a big reason why I am a horror fan today. And though this one didn't do anything really that different, it's, it was pretty predictable. I knew who the killers were from the get-go. That's not me thinking I'm smarter than everyone else. It's, if you watch the Scream movies, they do follow a kind of template. And it's fairly easy to pick out who might be the killer, which is one of the reasons I like the second one so much, because the stupidity of who the killer is part of why I love it. It's shocking, but the meta self-referential stuff that it touches on, it feels a little more on the nose. And I think this is one that some people, loved, and I think a lot of people are really underwhelmed by. And I think both camps are valid in those feelings, but I think we're living in a time where horror is bigger than ever. And I don't know how you can debate that. You just, you look at what I talked about before with the box office reports of those movies. People who aren't horror fans are watching horror now. Like people who you would have never guessed to see the movie like The Babadook have seen The Babadook. So it feels, I understand why people would feel weird about them talking about all that stuff, but it's the vein of the movie. It's the vein of the franchise and what it hinges on. And I had so much fun watching it, and I gave it another watch, and it made me tear up when I saw it, because it did something with a main character that I am very attached to. He's kind of a part of my childhood at this point. And yeah, I don't know. It worked for me. I had a lot of fun with it. I am putting it at number 10. It just squeaked by some really good movies are left off the list because I put this one here. But I'm a Scream fan, so I'm excited for the next one. I think the trailers look great. Ghostface is more brutal than ever in this one. That's something I'll give Scream 5, is that it really upped the ante. With the kills are just horrendous at moments. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
I think if I can just kind of talk about this one, I don't have Scream on my list. It nearly was on here, but I that was an honorable mention. But yeah, I do appreciate this or last year was a strong year for franchises in general. But yeah, I do appreciate what Scream did, and yeah, they notched the violence up big time. And yeah, they weren't afraid to shake up their cast, which is something good. And I think even moving forward now, partially because Nev didn't want to be a part of it, but they've switched directions with where they're going. And well, yeah,
I think Nev was like lowballed hard, which is one of the reasons I was honestly hesitant about how I felt, because I've always said I'm not interested in seeing a Scream movie without Sidney Prescott. And they have officially done that. And then the trailers came out. I'm like, you know what? This looks fucking awesome. Like, it looks super fun.
Ghostface is turning more and more into John Wick every day.
I know, and I'm here for it. I don't know. I'm looking forward to that one. I think that comes out like next month. But I think one last thing I want to say about it too is, and funnily enough, this is a common thread between Sick and Scream, is it touches on things that people are sick of right now, and no pun intended. That's COVID. Like I know that we're going to get a lot of movies that are going to touch on the pandemic, because it was a huge part of the world, and it impacted, and it's going to inspire a lot of cool stories. But with Scream 5, it really delved into and leaned deep into the legacy sequel thing that became the whole crux of the movie, is referencing Star Wars and what they did with Halloween, and how that's just the world that we live in, and it's gotten really old and stale at this point. And them commenting on it doesn't freshen it up. It might just drive the nail even deeper for people who are annoyed by it. But I think this one, with some time in between it, I'm just predicting now, I think this is going to be one that people are going to look back on, once we're a little bit further away from the whole legacy sequel trend. I think this one's going to get better over the years, because and it also gave us, this was the first appearance of the year of Jenna Ortega, who took over the world this year, among Mia Goth as well, who's not in Scream, but it's the year of Jenna Ortega and Mia Goth. Like, they crushed it this year, and she's so good in it. Jack Quaid's always fun. Dylan Minnette is great. I know we both love that guy, and his scene was a showstopper.
I feel he was a little bit underutilized, but yeah, we both love him, and it was just nice having him in the film
for sure. And I think we feel that he's underutilized because we like him so much. You want to see more of him. You want to see more of him, but that makes it kind of a understandable decision to do what they did. because it makes you feel, yeah, no one's fucking safe in these movies. But yeah, I really liked Scream. So that's my number 10. Buzi, let's go with your number 9. Let's also, I think we're all over the place today, as always. We didn't mention that if we have a common movie, if one of us, like, say your number 9 is on my list,
yeah,
we'll say hold and move on, and we'll touch on it once it comes up on our respective lists.
Yeah, just so we're not having another person, or the person who has to follow it up, feel like they can't add anything to the conversation. All right, so this is another one of my Shudder bounty hauls here. So on the Rotten Tomatoes for it, it says it came out in 2020, but we just got it over here in 2022. So this is All the Moons, directed by Igor Lagaretta. Lagaretta.
You did it. I'm calling it a success.
Yes, big W's all around.
I have not seen this one, Buzi.
You know what? I feel like this is right up your fucking alley. So
it sounds like it.
So this is a film set in the 19th century in northern Spain. It's during a war. A little girl is rescued from an orphanage that's being bombarded by a gypsy-ish woman with a strange past and a little bit of a curse, and you figure out as you go what's going on with all these characters, and it is amazing. I want to say that I think you have to see this. You'll dig it. It's a very stylistic. I don't want to give away what it actually is, because that's kind of the big part of the film, is you unraveling and finding out what these characters have become. But it is great. I think period piece films can be difficult to go with, to deal with, and I think they did a great job of this film. And a lot of it's built around this young actress, I can't remember her name, who did terrific. I think her name's Hazy in like real life, but fantastic little actress who put together this performance of like this girl growing up and trying to figure out where she fits in this world that she didn't want to be growing up in.
Yep, this top of my list now. This looks awesome, man. I don't know how this one slipped past me. I never even heard of it.
Oh,
that's awesome.
It's beautiful. I think you're gonna have a great time with it. Anyone who enjoys those, I think, for lack of a better term, the kind of whimsical, like A24-ish films, this is gonna be right up here.
Yeah, I did say that I think this is going to be our most different year with each other. Like, I feel like our lists are going to be very different, but so far our lists follow. Like, you chose a slasher, I chose a slasher. You chose a like period piece, kind of creepy, moody movie, and so did I. So I'm excited to talk about that. But man, that sounds awesome. Yeah, right at the top of my list, All the Moons. What country is this from?
It's Spain, I believe.
Spain. Yeah, it's Spain. Cool.
I live in Spain without the S.
And did you see this on Shudder?
Yes, it is on the best Shudder.
I love Shudder so much, but let's fix that algorithm on that app, because like this movie's not even on my radar, and I'm on that app every single day. It sucks, because this is so up my alley.
Also, yeah, if someone from Shudder happens to listen to this, fix your fucking PlayStation app. It is trash. I have to re-download.
I didn't even know they had it yet.
They do, but it does this thing where it like error codes itself after watching something like so many times. So you can like log in and watch something like 2 or 3 times, and then it just gives you this error message. So you have to delete it and re-download it, and it's all this I know nobody finds this interesting.
No,
but it's really fucking annoying.
I straight up bought I'm a guy who's technologically illiterate, and so I bought a Chromecast because I was tired of having to plug my computer in every time I wanted to watch Shudder.
Right. I hate how you feel like an old person plugging in a computer now. It's like, this thing's still fucking state of the art, but nope.
Yeah, no, exactly. Okay. Well, my number 9 is a movie that there's a chance it might be on your list. So if it is, we'll pause and we'll touch on it when it gets to you. But my number 9 is a little gothic period piece called The Cursed.
That is higher up on my list.
Okay. Yes. All right. So we'll return to it. So
can it.
Yeah, we're going to can it. Number 9, Yeah, so I chose The Cursed. We will touch on that once we get to Buzi's, where it is on Buzi's list.
Yes.
All right. So I think you're on to number 8, buddy.
Yes, sir. So my number 8, which I believe is a Tubi original, is James Nunn's, not James Gunn, Shark Bait.
Shark Bait.
Yes. I know that people are gonna be like, come on, man.
No, they know you. And
you know your boy.
Yeah.
I just have to say this film has a couple really good scenes that, like, there's a competence underneath here that I think probably most people wouldn't consider when going into a shark film like this. But there's a couple cool homages to your films like Jaws, your classic Jaws, or like A Deep Blue Sea. I think the actual shark design is actually fairly serviceable, which is we always talk about is a big issue with these shark films, but it's pretty decent. And I think I convinced you to watch this, Mitch.
Yeah, you did. And if I'm going to be complete, like my favorite movie of all time is Jaws. I love you and I connect on nature run amok movies. This one, it slipped my mind when thinking about my list, but that doesn't mean I remember I had fun with it. And I remember being pleasantly surprised because this is a movie like most of these shark movies or nature run amok movies. A lot of people are most likely just going to skip right over when they see the poster art.
Yep.
But this one, I do remember there were moments that they did a few things differently, and the shark design looked cool, and it was fun.
Yep. And that's really all you can ask for with your nature run amok films. But yeah, exactly. I think there was enough here that it made my list.
I am so happy and proud to be behind a podcast that includes movies like Shark Bait in their top 10. So, and that's no shade on the movie or you. It's a side of the genre that doesn't get enough love, and I'm happy that we represent it.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I think that the one thing we can pat ourselves on the back for is we don't just watch the same things.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we do whenever we're in a pinch and we don't know what to do. Our first instinct is always to go to let's do like, remember when Diego left the show, we're like, let's do a shark episode. And then when Kyle left the show, we're like, let's do a crocodile episode.
That was us like getting over it.
Yeah, they're like we
therapeutic.
We dubbed these nature run like these cheesy, not even like some of them aren't like, I remember Shark Bait wasn't even that cheesy, but these are our breakup movies. Exactly. They're our comfort movies. Awesome. Okay, cool. So Shark Bait is Buzi's number 8. My number 8, man. Oh god. So I'm kind of dreading but excited to talk about this one because I know your stance on it, and I don't know if you know mine. My number 8 is Skinamarink.
Really?
All right. Fucking loved it. And I have never been more understanding of both sides of people thinking that this is the worst movie ever made, and then people thinking that it is the greatest. I totally get it. And I'm not going to lie and say that the movie worked for me from start to finish. This movie requires patience and dedication from its audience. And it's one of those, and I know people have said this before, and I feel like it's kind of it sounds mean to say it, but I'm personally not meaning it to sound mean, but it's not a movie. Like this isn't a,
it's an experiment, honestly. It's totally an experience, I guess.
It is 100% an art film that is something that it's the reason that why I went to it is because I heard from you saying like, and I'm not meaning to throw you under the bus. There's a lot of people out there who feel the same way as you. Like, honestly, I think most people didn't connect with it and were painfully bored by it. But then I had a few people being like, this movie is fucking incredible and it scared the shit out of me. So I was like, I gotta go see it. So I did. And man, like I'm so desensitized from horror at this point. It takes so much to scare me. The stuff that has scared me over the years has been like brutal violence and stuff that feels real. And like, like that could actually happen. This is a conversation that comes up every time anyone talks about it. So there's nothing you're going to hear me saying that you haven't heard somewhere else if you've been keeping up with the release of this film. but it truly did creep me the fuck out. By the end of it, I was so engrossed and so into it that I was doing the whole, like, when you have your foot hanging off the side of the bed and then you pull it in underneath the blankets. That's how it was for me. It brought back repressed memories of my childhood, waking up in the middle of the night at a friend's, at either your house where you want to go and you got to find your parents, and it puts you in the mindset of a 4-year-old. I think that's brilliant. Like, it's brilliant. And it brought back memories of me staying at, like, shout out my friend Sean Elliott. He was my first friend. I would go for sleepovers at his house. That was the house that I saw Star Wars at for the first time, but we'd have sleepovers. And there were a couple times where I woke up in the middle of the night and I just pissed myself because I was so scared. Like, I think I've talked about it.
Was that like a conscious, I just have to ask, like, was that a conscious decision? Like, you're like, I'm afraid I have to piss myself, or you just you involuntarily, you're like, I'm 4. Peeing my, okay.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, this is straight up, it's partially a repressed memory. I think I might have talked about this on the show before, but my dad was the guy who always had a camcorder on his hand while we were growing up. So we have, like, he got all of his, like,
he was like a main character in like every found footage movie.
That's exactly, like, dude, we have a DVD binder at my dad's house. He got all of those tapes transferred over to DVD, and we have thousands and thousands of hours of our childhood recorded. And my dad received a phone call from my friend Sean's parents saying, "Hey, Mitch had an accident. You got to come pick him up," because I pissed myself. And my dad, his response, you know what he fucking did? He grabbed the video camera, went and, like, the house was a couple doors down. We lived on the same street. And there's a video of me on those DVDs, like, doing the whole crab walk, like where, when the piss was burning your thighs. And I had pissy pants. I was crying, and I'm walking, and my dad's laughing his ass off behind the camera, being like, "Mitchell, what did you do?" And I'm just crying. And I'm like, that memory came up while I was watching Skinamarink. But yeah, it's just like, man, this movie, it really, like, this. Sorry.
It's just like, it's like, I'm waiting for you for the part of the story where your dad, like, bullies you, where he's like, "Mitchy pee pants."
Well, that pretty much is exactly what he was doing. But yeah, like I said, it has never been easier for me to understand the polarizing reactions that this movie has had, and I think both sides are totally valid. But I just think, like, I love the audacity of releasing this movie. But I think that the director, he made this movie for $15,000 in his family home in Edmonton. And the reach it had, which I think is partially, because of TikTok, like, he managed to get it on TikTok and went viral, or like clips from it. And man, it's like, you're staring into the void with this movie. And I do think it's too long. I will admit that. I think, because it's at an hour and 40 minutes. But at the same time, I think part of the reason it works so well at the end is because you're either completely lulled over by what you're seeing. You're almost in a daze. You're watching this really shitty lo-fi footage of really unconventional camera angles of, like, a ceiling. And then but you're, like, held on to it for so long that the movie almost makes you stoned. Like, it really, like, you have to be patient for this movie. And I hope I'm making sense here. But yeah, man, this movie brought up memories of pre-divorce.
Oh, BD times.
Yeah, BD. I do. Yeah. Like, I will say, this is already being recorded. So I will say 100% on if I'm able to get my next movie off the ground, if I'm able to do what I want to do, I'm 100% ripping the sound design of this movie off. There's a couple moments where I thought the sound design was something I had never heard before. And it was so engrossing. And so, like, it delves into the ASMR, like the kids whispering behind the camera was so creepy.
Yeah, I will give it that. There was a couple creepy parts using that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So it just, man, it really worked for me. I do want to give a special shout out / rest in peace to the YouTube channel / the guys behind making, I'm not sure have you ever heard of the Backrooms? I had never heard of
like this. The concept of it.
Like, I had never even heard the term the Backrooms.
Yeah.
So it's like a VR. Is it VR? Like, what? It's on YouTube. If you look up, I know the account is Kane Pixels. Basically, though, Kane Pixels has been making Skinamarink for years, doing the exact same thing. And this movie comes out, and it's so similar. And I'm like, oh man, this guy is so crushed right now because Skinamarink made over $1 million at this point. He's been doing it for years. It's the same kind of concept.
I got your Skinamarink out back here. I got like 40 of them.
It's Skinamarink at home, but not even. Like it's crazy though. Like I think the overall concept of the back rooms is like when you're in a video game and you fall into like a dead space and it takes you into like a room that you're not meant to be in and you're stuck in it. Because like the whole, plot, the plot behind Skinamarink is that these two kids wake up in the middle of the night to look for their dad. They can't find their dad, and all their windows and doors are disappearing in their house, and they're stuck in it. And I don't know, man, it brought back it obviously. And I know a lot of people they loosely throw out the term Lynchian anytime something is weird, but this totally is a feature length, like Lynch fever dream / Gabe from The Office making films. Like it's like, we cutting into the cake and there's blood coming out of it. Like I got that vibe from Skinamarink. So I have been excited, but also dreading talking to you about this because I know how you felt about it. And I totally get it. But yeah, man, I really liked it.
I want to be nice to it because like I love what it's doing and where it's going. I think that's great overall. It's this fucking the big waves make all the ships happy, whatever the fuck that saying is. But it really wasn't for me. It made me just kind of at a certain point tune out and think about like home renovations just because I saw so much like moldings and stuff. It was like, fuck, I gotta paint this, I gotta change the it didn't do it for me, and I wasn't scared. I know that I've seen, not only yourself, I've seen a couple people talking about it, that it was like genuinely creepy and they really enjoyed it. And it's like, that's awesome because it is so different, but it just wasn't for me. And that's there's plenty of room at the table for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I love what this movie has done for the landscape of horror. I am so excited to see what this director does next because he can't follow it up with the same. One thing I'll say,
that's a tough position to be in, I gotta say.
And I was talking about this with a couple of friends last night, is the worst thing that could come out of Skinamarink is going to be Skinamarink imposters, like people who try and do this. Like, man, this better not become a trend because this is totally lightning in a bottle.
Don't get the idea. They just kind of see like the structure of it.
Yeah, they see that they're like, oh well, we don't even need to, like, we could just use any camera and just
we don't gotta pay anybody.
We could put it on a wall and have a couple whispers it's like, it is lightning in a bottle what this movie has been able to accomplish. I don't want to see Skinamarink imitators. I think
that's what I was gonna say. Like, even for someone who did enjoy it, like, do you want to watch 3 or 4 other films that are kind of like this?
I'm gonna be honest. I think this is gonna be one of those ones. I'm going to try my best to not watch this movie for another 10 years. Like, I want to. This is one of those ones where it could be a fun, like, this is. I know it played at the Saskatoon Fantastic Film Festival this year, but this is
that's where I saw it.
Yeah, and like something I'll just quickly touch on it. We have the Rio Theater here, which is it's the best. It's Vancouver's Broadway theater, and it's a movie like
named after that movie
with the parrots.
Yeah.
I went since the last time we were recorded. I've been to a midnight movie, and then I went to see John Carpenter's The Thing on Wednesday, and it was at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday, and that place was fucking sold out. It's crazy. And like, people who go to the Rio, they are so they really interact with the movies, sometimes for better or worse. I saw Freddy vs. Jason there too. I think that's a perfect movie where you can make fun of it and joke through it.
Have fun with the crowd.
Didn't love the laughter at a lot of The Thing. There's parts of that where I was like, you guys calm down. Like, this, some parts are funny, but let's calm down. It's one of those things where this is not precious.
That funny.
Yeah, this is precious for me. So, but like, the Skinamarink played before Freddy vs. Jason. When we went to the midnight Freddy vs. Jason, and man,
that is a weird.
Well, they weren't connected. It was just playing at the theater. But the audience,
but like, I couldn't imagine.
That was before I had seen Skinamarink, and that's what really convinced me to see it, because I was like, we're waiting in line, and all these people are coming out, and some of these people, they looked like pale white, like they had never, like they literally had just seen a ghost, and then other people being like, how the fuck did you drag me out to this? Like, people were pissed. And I love that. I love the polarizing opinions and reactions that these movies can have. But spending too much time on it, loved Skinamarink. I recommend it, but I do think this is a movie, though. If you're going to try it, you have to, if you're going to watch it at home, you got to turn all the lights out. You got to throw your phone into another room. You got to let the movie work its magic. This is a movie that if you pull your phone out, even for 1 second, it could ruin what it's trying to do. Mm-hmm. And that's not for everyone. I understand that. But if you're going to have an opinion on it, at least watch the movie. That's, yeah. But yeah, so that was my number 8. Buzi, what's your number 7?
All right. That was, I'm glad we finally got to talk about that film because it is kind of, it snuck up as the biggest talking point of 2022 in a weird way.
You know that like scene from Big Trouble in Little China where the head starts ballooning up? That's how I've been feeling every time I talk to you, because I'm like, I want to talk about this, but I think I should save it. And honestly, it was originally, I was like, this can't be higher than my number 10. Like, it's going to be on my list, but it can't be higher.
Right.
And then it's been lingering for me, and that's why it's a little higher.
I like that. And I think that, you know what, the great tradition of time capsules has really been lost. So what we need to do is get a copy of Skinamarink and we need to bury it somewhere.
Yeah.
And you go back in the 10 years. Like, let's bring back burying things in the earth.
But let's put a label on it saying this is what the liberals don't want you to see.
The liberal cuck agenda at work.
All right, let's move on. So let's go into our number 7.
Number 7. All right. So this one, I just want to preface this before we get started talking about it. This is a Shudder original. I want to say that given a little bit of time and probably another watch, this film is going to land way higher for me. But even it's giving me the warm rumblies even right now, as Winnie the Pooh would say. So my number 7 is Sissy, directed by Hannah Barlow and Kane Scenes.
Yes. Yeah, I did check it out. It's not on my list, but I'm excited to hear you talk about it.
I think this is part of like a new generation of self-aware, fun horror movies. There's something so genuine about some of the aspects that goes into this film, kind of talking about people being narcissistic and how social media works, and just growing up too, and kind of those concepts that all of us, this universal, like everybody's had a friend that just kind of didn't work out for one reason or another, and you feel a little scorned about it.
Kyle Zervinsky.
Yeah, like fuck you and Diego, you bastards, you left us.
Yeah, love.
We're not upset about it at all.
Yeah,
but
nothing but love, bro.
Yeah, it's just that's kind of, there's a weird vicariousness to this film that, and I think Aisha D, who is the main character of this, is phenomenal. It's very hard to have a character who is so layered be genuinely like sweet the entire time, because her character goes through so much, and the entire time I was rooting for her. And there are certain times when you feel like you really shouldn't be. But yeah, overall, this movie is, I think that's something I can't stress enough. And I know it's always a dumb buzzword I use, but like, fun is watching. These are the kind of horror movies that you can really enjoy. Like when you see the kills coming, they're genuinely, like, they're still really fucking gruesome, but they're hilarious in a weird way. And they how they deal with social media is super funny. I can't say enough good things about Sissy, and I feel like giving it a little bit more time and another watch, this is going to be way higher, because I genuinely, it makes me smile.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that about you too, is something that's we've talked about this year a lot, is like, you don't seem, like we have said a couple times that you don't seem to like those goofy horror movies, but the thing is, I think this movie has that tone from beginning to end, whereas I think you're just not as into like the tonal shifts of some horror comedies like Evil Dead 2 or Drag Me to Hell, stuff like that. And that's totally understandable. But I love that because dude, you're a hilarious guy, and of course you like comedy. Yeah, you like comedy horror, and like this movie, I did enjoy it. I'm gonna say it's not I think it's just not for me right now because I'm so tired of like I
are you in serious Mitch mode?
No, not even slightly. Not even slightly. It's just this type of horror. I understand the appeal, and I contradict myself because there's some. This is coming from, you're hearing this from a podcaster, but the whole like social media influencer thing is getting really, really tiring for me. And like the having to follow unlikable YouTubers and stuff like that stuff just annoys me. But at the same time, I had a lot of fun. It's not on my list, but I had a lot of fun with Deadstream this year, which did exactly the same thing, actually even more in your face than Sissy. But there's just something about it. This is one I will go back to it eventually. I know that people are really enjoying it, and I'm happy that you had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I also want to give a shout out to Deadstream. I did it did not make my list, but
dude, that's a fun ass movie.
Like it was pretty fucking fun. They do a great job of acknowledging like how fucking absurd and just annoying social media people can be.
Totally. But I think, and that's, just now talking about this, I'm like, I feel like I should have put Deadstream on my list because I thought that was what made it work. Was he was annoying, but he was so clearly obviously annoying. Like I found it like, I feel like he was making fun of himself. Like the actor was making fun of it, and he's the director and writer as well.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with Deadstream, but yeah,
that's super endearing film. I agree.
Yeah, but that's a tough sell for me though. Like when you put that down on paper, like a YouTuber goes into a haunted house and blah blah blah. I'm like, man, I can't think of anything I want to see less. As people are listening to us on a podcast, so and obviously take what I have to say about this kind of stuff with a grain of salt. But yeah, either way, Sissy, that's awesome that you enjoyed that one. That was your number 7. Cool. My number 7, I think you've seen this movie. I don't actually know your opinion on it, but I feel like you probably didn't like it. Definitely didn't like it as much as I did. But it's another movie that's now on Shudder. It played at Dark Bridges Horror Film Festival, the place that premiered The Druid's Hand. What Josiah Saw.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So you did see that one? Okay.
Yes, I did.
So this one, it's directed by Vincent Grishaw and was written by Robert Allen Dilts. I really, really connected with this one, and for all of the obvious reasons. Obviously, I had not seen this movie before we made The Druid's Hand, but there was what made me really excited to see it was I had a friend who like programs film festivals and everything, and he saw The Druid's Hand. He's like, man, have you seen What Josiah Saw? Because it's like very, very much like similar tones and everything. So I was like, oh well, I need to see it obviously now, because that's clearly mine and Jesse's thing, is those rural prairie gothic type feeling movies. And and then with a cast like Robert Patrick, and it's always great to see Nick Stoltz back. I know he's vocally talked like this is Nick Stoltz was at one point a teen star and came upon some personal struggles, and he's been out of the game for a while, but then he returned with Hunter x Hunter, which was a great movie from a couple of years ago. And then once again with What Josiah Saw, I just thought like this movie, it hit a lot of the sweet spots for me that movies like The Dark and the Wicked hit for me. I love the aesthetic of it, but what really made me enjoy this one more than made me enjoy this one just as a whole is its unconventional way of telling the story. It deals with a lot of really heavy familial themes, and a lot of like, obviously it's a mainstay in horror at this point is trauma and grief, but I think that this movie handled that expertly, and it was all just elevated with one of the most haunting scores I heard this year. I always turn the What Josiah score on when I'm, writing or just hanging out in my house trying to get creative, and it's just it hits a lot of my personal sweet spots, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think it has a fucking hell of an ending. It's a movie that's kind of like slower. It's a slower burn. As soon as you start, I can understand how it won't be some people's thing, because once you start connecting to one character, they switch the story to another character, and then they all tie together at the end. But I thought that ending came to a brutally vicious climax, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I wanted to highlight it. I guess fairly high on my list. So that's what Josiah Saw.
I love that this is on here, and this totally feels like you mentioned Dark and the Wicked, something like that. There's so many similarities, and this one was one that I also kind of had a hard time keeping off my list, because it is really, I thinking of it right now, I was like, damn, I probably should have had this on my list. And a comparable to this film that I think maybe is a little bit apt, maybe not, you can kind of tell me, but even something like Frailty, this reminded me a lot of Frailty.
And Frailty is the biggest fucking influence on, like, it doesn't take a genius to watch The Druid's Hand and see that we pretty much ripped that off. Like, it's that's I love that movie. I love the sweaty blue collar working man out off in the desolate prairies. It's so much my shit. And there's not an ounce of comedy in this movie. Like, that's one thing that I would understand why it wouldn't be for everyone.
Yeah, even there was no hee-hees or ha-has in there.
No, it's so straight faced. It's so serious, which is why I'd understand why it's not going to be for a lot of people. But I wanted to highlight it here because, if people have been listening to us for long enough and my sensibilities and what the kind of stuff I enjoy, this is a movie that might have slipped through the cracks, and you can now see it on Shudder. It's a lower budget movie that I think didn't get as much love as it deserves, but hopefully the shelf life is going to be, up in the back end right now. I hope people start discovering it and giving it a shot, because I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's what Josiah saw at number 7.
I want to shadow what you said. That check this out. It's on Shudder. It's fucking great. If you want to be happy and have some giggles, definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's a real knee slapper.
It's a real knee. All right, so it's time for number 6. And my number 6 is a little bit of a wild pick. I can't really say even why I put it where it is. It's not entirely a horror movie even, but I just think it's so much fun, and there's again that buzzword, and has a lot of rewatchability for me, and includes one of my favorite hunkiest hunks. So at number 6, mine is Beast.
Yes,
starring Idris Elba, directed by Baltazar Kormacor. This is, we've talked about it even this episode multiple times, the nature run amok films, and I think this one is just on a little bit higher level in terms of like directing and editing. I think it's so slick the way it kind of turns into like a little bit of a siege film for a while. And there's, you have obviously the sweetest dude ever, Idris Elba, and his not kids.
Boom,
that's so funny to me. Yeah,
it's so sad.
Fuck your kids. Anyway, I just overall I think the effects for this are pretty decent for this, considering it could have been just the goofiest looking, but the lion's really cool, and just overall a very fun. Obviously it's a comparison just based on kind of what it is, but kind of like is it Ghost in the Darkness, something like that.
Honestly, what I was thinking too is this is the good version of Primeval, that shitty movie that we talked about with Daniel Epler this year. Is like, and what I mean by that is like it keeps with a
what do you mean by that?
It's set in like the outback, and it has that really exotic feeling setting, and it's like a lot of it is in the broad daylight, and it's still terrifying because it's so intense, and it's like it's visually beautiful to look at. It's not on my list. I just will quickly weigh in, like, because I had fun with this one as well, and I think it's like this is a very, if you like the kinds of movies that we're talking about, there's no way you're not going to enjoy Beast. Like, you've seen way worse, you've seen better, but like I like that they really showed, like Charlton Copley's character really showed the tenderness and the love that you could have for these creatures like lions, and then also seeing how brutally vicious they are. And it's like this is a prime example of one of those movies. Obviously I have a love for Anaconda that pretty much no one could compete with because of nostalgic reasons, but it's like this reminds me of that type of movie that would be really fun to watch with your family.
And it's just kind of that like one-off ones. I wanted to mention like Lake Placid, but unfortunately they made a bunch of fucking sequels to that. But it's that just that idea.
No one remembers those though.
Exactly. It's that the Deep Blue Sea, the Lake Placid, like you mentioned.
They Anaconda. Got their tongue. You can see their tongue in their cheek, but they're still treating it with some form of respect enough for it to be a fun. Like, I put this on the same camp as Fall.
Exactly.
There are plot holes you could drive a bus through, but who gives a shit? You're watching a fun movie about a family being tracked down by vicious, brutal Mufasas.
Exactly. There's this fucking mean motherfucking lion. So, and it's very competently made. So yeah, I'd recommend, even if you're kind of on the fence about it, or if you're more of a not even just a straight up horror person, if you like kind of those actiony films, this one fucking does it.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. So that was your number 6, Beast.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. All right. Well, my number 6, we'll see if we're gonna be talking about this later. My number 6 is Hellraiser.
Yeah. I also have Hellraiser. That is actually my number 5.
Okay, so we can just
we can just talk about it.
Yeah, okay, sweet, perfect. Yeah, so look, man, I'm admittedly just a huge David Bruckner fanboy at this point. I love his style, the tone he sets, the metaphors he likes.
I think he's definitely like, he's next in line for putting out some incredible shit, and this is just the start of it.
Like, yeah, and honestly, even number 10 on my last year was The Night House, and I remember I even wasn't sold on that movie when I put it as my number 10, but something in me felt like I was like, this should theoretically work for you. I think you're going to regret not putting it, so at least put it number 10. And now looking back on it, honestly, even with a year that has passed, that would probably jump to my number 2, like from last year. Like I fell in love with that movie this year, so I'm happy I stuck with my instinct there and kept it on the list, even though at the time it didn't hit with me. But yeah, like he just, the tones he sets, the metaphors he likes to play with, like the true shining element of his interpretation of Hellraiser is his ability to craft elaborate sequences that straddle the line of like a depressed Nightmare on Elm Street superfan. Like, man, this movie does not fuck around. Like, it is so crazy and so fun, but like, this is a movie that, if it would have been released in like the early aughts, this shit would have been loaded to the brim with Mudvayne. So,
oh my god, it would have been, it would on that same level as like you're watching like Ghost Ship.
Yes. Which little spoiler for Terror Table listeners, if you want something to be excited about.
Are you telling them? Are you telling them?
Should we quickly tell them?
Fuck yeah.
We're doing New Metal March, baby.
Yeah. So excited for New Metal March.
I don't know if we're gonna be able, because like obviously it's just a miracle for us to be able to get in the same room with our schedules, but we're gonna do at least a couple episodes on movies that were heavily loaded up with new metal. So we're talking Ghost Ship, the House on Haunted Hill remake, like all that Dark Castle Entertainment, that whole era of movie. But this is a movie that totally would have fit in that vein. But I don't know, just now talking about just this movie, I feel like this Hellraiser feels huge. The visuals are just so fucking nuts and so expertly, incredibly well executed. I think like they practically show you, they do show you a shot with the POV from inside of someone's throat and a pin, like a big needle going through it. And
that one was a hard watch.
Oh my god! Like I watched this. Shout out my boy Dallas, who's going to be on the show eventually. Here, we live in the same house, and this is one of the movies we watched together, and we both like burst out laughing at the absurdity of how extreme some of the horror was in this movie. And I think that Hellraiser as a whole has the best special effects in horror all the whole year. And that's in a year that gave us Terrifier
body
2.
Imagery was insane in this.
Yeah, and that's zero shade to Terrifier 2.
Yeah.
It's just that on the scale that they were working with Hellraiser, I have yet to see a movie that blends practical effects and CGI as well as this Hellraiser does. There are moments of this where it doesn't look cheesy when they're doing like the most extreme. You're watching a body have a huge gash in the center of it, and you watch it reform and grow together, and you can just see the practical artistry that went into it, and then the gloss that they put in post. And I think it's brilliant. It looks so good. Not famously, but I in the past have talked about how I initially wasn't a fan of the original Hellraiser as a youngin', because I didn't like the soap opera aesthetic, and the types of themes that Clive Barker was working with flew directly over my head. But over the years, I'm now in that camp where I consider Hellraiser to be one of the best horror movies ever made, at the very least top 20. I am one of those people that truly does believe that Clive Barker's Hellraiser is one of the best horror movies. And I think it's better than the original. I still like more than this, but this movie does all those same things. Like it updates the instead of the Young and the Restless Days of Our Lives soap opera feel that you get from the original, this one feels like the CW and, you know, something like that. But you watch all these gorgeous, stunning, like young, sexy people get ripped apart. And that was a blast. I had so much fun with it. I think Bruckner's Hellraiser does I think he does a really good job of, you know, showing respect for the source material while making it his own. And I do think there are moments that it was missing. Like it's missing some leather. It could have used some more leather and
it wasn't
bondage.
Kinky enough.
Yeah, it could have been kinkier. And like that's a huge key element of what makes Hellraiser. And like the sexuality, I feel like it was, even though this movie was very horny, I feel like it took a back seat in the overall story. But as a whole, just as an entertaining movie, I had a blast with it. I love the Cenobites. I think like there are scenes in this where, like I've talked about, there's a scene where Pinhead shows up. I think it's like her second appearance, but it's like one of the most masterfully executed sequences I've seen in recent years. Where like the hallway is growing larger and she's walking out throwing these chains, and like there's like little vignettes and nods to. I feel like it has to be like paying homage to movies like Dream Warriors with the suicide kill, where you know the character has his veins ripped out of his wrists and he's walked around like a marionette in Dream Warriors. Like there are moments that really felt like this movie was made by someone who has that in their DNA. And so he hasn't missed for me yet. I would still say this is probably my, like, if this is at the bottom of his catalog and I love this movie that much, that shows how much I love this guy's vision. And he's a huge inspiration for me. I love what he does. I hope this movie gets a sequel. That would be great because I want to see more in this universe. But I really, really, really loved Hellraiser. So now let's go into your number 5. Let's go into your number 5.
This is my number 5. So I'm just going to tack on a lot with what Mitch has been saying, and I want to start with David Bruckner himself. He really put the hell back in Hellraiser. That's one thing I feel like, and I know it's clever wordplay because I'm so smart, but also I just actually think that they really put this idea of hell being more than just some rando making weird comments to you while you get shredded. Like there's a bigger picture to this. There's like this, like, you know, this outer dimension, this insane space that we're not even aware of that gets involved in this movie. And you know, I think we've talked about it before, like the actual what is the name of that device?
Lament configuration. They really built on that.
Yeah, like the lament configuration, it meant so much in this. I feel like every time you saw it, you're like, that is a real hero prop. And I really loved just all the different ways in which because it would take like it's like pound of flesh from you. It would poke you somehow to get your blood. And I loved how they played with that. It never felt like forced or like, okay, here we gotta go again with this. It always just felt like, you know, to have like an item just like that really has no inherent value as being dangerous other than the implications of what happens after, but that you're actually like afraid of this thing, like, hey, character, don't pick that shit up.
Is, you know, anytime someone picks that thing up and it draws blood, this person's about to get murked. Like, and that's exciting. Like for people who like, you know, part of being a horror fan is loving that grotesque brutality that you know is coming, and it doesn't skimp on it ever.
Yeah, exactly. And it never feels forced. I feel like the progression of it and just kind of even how characters are played out, it doesn't ever feel it feels like a natural progression of this film. And you know, just because of, you know, even release date, but in terms of being you know, a reboot or something that freshens up a franchise, something, you know, like
Candyman. This is this year's Candyman.
Exactly. And I think they both films did such a good job of updating these, you know, characters that have so many installments in the franchise and maybe kind of have, I don't want to say like a stink to them, but like, you know, after a while the quality just went down so much.
And you know me, like I will see things through to the bitter end, but I have not even been able to get through most of those Hellraiser sequels. Like after 3, I'm fucking done. And 3 is in itself bad as well, which there's nods to 3 in this movie. And I love that he included those things.
Mm-hmm.
It shows that he loves Clive Barker's vision.
Exactly. And I think that was another thing is you kind of mentioning with that is having Jamie Clayton. This is such a big change for Pinhead as a character to have the, your main character is now a female, and kind of what she's bringing to the table, as this Pinhead character, and just the violence that she puts out and how she does it, and just her character's overall presence is fantastic. Those are big shoes to fill. And I know we just said about how the franchise really does start to stink after a while, but still it's just as much that Doug Bradley and Pinhead are these iconic characters. And I think that Jamie Clayton did a fantastic job of going into those shoes, and her and Bruckner combining to have this new vision of Pinhead that is like terrifying. Just such an amazing performance overall. And I hope that you get more out of this.
Such a great decision to cast her as Pinhead, because like that's something I've thought about over the years, and there's so many correlations to this. Like there are moments where it's like, oh, this feels more like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie than it does a Hellraiser movie at times, which isn't a criticism, because that's my favorite franchise. I fucking love those Nightmare movies. But that's like, this movie gives me hope we know that we're going to get another Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and we know that they're not going to bring Robert Englund back at a certain point. Like it's just going to happen. But it's like, it seems like an impossible shoes to fill to take over for Doug Bradley, but Jamie Clayton crushed it. And we have seen other people step into the shoes of Pinhead and it not work. I've only seen like the YouTube clips, but it's she crushed it. I'm happy we are big fans of Hellraiser. We can put some respect on this movie's name.
Finally.
Yes, because I know this is one that actually got beat up a little bit this year. And I hope that its staying power, I hope we see its staying power over the years. Because this one is just a lot of fun. All right. Okay, so that was your number 5. Now, oh god, now we're on to my number 5. My number 5 might be higher for you. It's crazy. It is absurd to me that this is at number 5, but it shows the quality of horror movies that we got this year. My number 5 is Prey.
That is higher for me.
Okay, let's table it. Let's go on to your number 5.
It'll come back around. I think
we're now 3. We have 3 in common.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to hit the nail on the head. I think we're going to have 4. I think we'll have 4 in common.
I think there's going to be a lot of crossover from now on.
Let's see.
All right. So, sorry, go ahead. My number 4 is, and I want to preface this. I love prefacing what I'm talking about with a little bit of stank. This is where I finally got on the train. This is where I finally get it.
It's higher.
So,
it's higher for me. I already know where you're going.
Okay. This is obviously this is Monkey Paw Productions, Jordan Peele film. Nope.
Yeah, it's higher for me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we will return to Nope. The movies that we know are going to come up that we need to talk about is Nope, Prey, and The Cursed.
Yes.
Okay. So my number 4, I am doing the annoying thing where I'm putting in a tie, but for a reason.
Boo.
I know. No, but here's the thing. If we're going to say no ties, I know what my stance is. My number 4 is Ty West's X and Pearl.
Okay, that's fair.
If I had a gun to my head, actually not even with a gun to my head, I can say X is more like, X is my movie out of the I love them both. I really loved them both. But yeah, Ty West 1-2 punch with X and Pearl this year. If that's considered cheating, like I said, X would definitely be more my speed.
No, I love that idea. I think that like if I had a movie series that did the same kind of concept, especially with what a wild year to do all of that.
Yeah.
But I love that idea of having those packaged together. Continue.
Yeah, totally. And like that's the thing, now in 2023, we're going to see the release. Hopefully, I believe it's this year. We're going to see Maxine, which will close out this trilogy. But yeah, from the get-go, I went and saw X, and this thing is just littered with things that tickle my sweet spot. It's a rural, desolate setting and a grime that comes with it. It's got big Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes, obviously. He even makes blatant, like, pays homage to the movie in so many different scenes, replicating shots from Tobe Hooper's original that I now consider one of my all-time favorites. But it's a somewhat fresh take on the slasher subgenre that understands how silly the concept can be in this day and age, therefore playing with a hint of comedy and a damn good cast. This movie kicked off two career defining years. I guess I'm now contradicting myself. There's, like I said before, it's just the year of Mia Goth and Jenna Ortega. They're both, they crushed this year. Specifically, Mia Goth has like taken over the world. I just saw Infinity Pool. I'll talk about that on our next episode.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about this.
Yeah, and then having, on top of that, having Owen Campbell playing the douchey and self-important film nerd brilliantly. Like, and I think, yeah, they did such a great job at highlighting this cast of characters, like having Kid Cudi playing the male porn performer. He was great in it. And of course, Brittany Snow's performance as Bobby Lynn, who I've made no secret to my undying crush that I've had on her for years, ever since John Tucker Must Die. So it was amazing seeing her in this role and pulling it off the way that she did. Martin Henderson, he was great, but I just think, yeah, the movie was just so much fun. I found it genuinely shocking at times, and a big thing that we hold a gold standard to this at the Terror Table. I feel like this is the Gator kill of the year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, X is not on my list, but that shout out to that fucking Gator scene, because that was so good.
Yeah, no, the Gator kill is amazing. And like, huge shout out to the scores in both of these movies. X had Tyler Bates and Chelsea Wolfe composing the movie, and it was just so good. And then Pearl, I actually like the Pearl score even more. And now it seems like for biased reasons, but it really isn't. It's Tyler Bates and Tim Williamson. And Tim is a guy that I got to know. I was lucky enough to spend some time with at Screamfest. Where he scored my friend Matt Sears' film Catch Your Breath. It's just a brilliant short film. But realizing that I was sitting down having a drink with the composer of Pearl was crazy. And he's just brilliant. He's done a lot of really cool things, Guardians of the Galaxy, and yeah, just I had a lot of fun with X.
X was gonna give it to you.
X gave it to me. And this is one that I think I'm gonna go back. Like, this trilogy is just, it's going to take a lot for Maxine to not hit for me. And as a guy who once considered myself a huge Ty West fan, I love The House of the Devil. I grew to like The Innkeepers more than I did even the first time I saw it. I think he's great, but there was a little bit there where he was playing with stuff that just wasn't hitting for me. X was not one of them. I had so much fun in this theater. It also, one of my favorite theatrical moments of the year was I saw this movie with previous guests of the show, Jason Hamill and Lauren Carr, his partner. And there's a moment where a rendition of Fleetwood Mac's Landslide plays. And Jason let out the most obnoxious laugh I've ever heard. And I was so mad for a second, because I'm like, motherfucker, like, you're ruining this for everyone. But then the whole theater, we were like, oh, yeah, this is clearly supposed to be hilarious. And that was one of my favorite moments of the year, seeing movies. And yeah, huge fan of X. I'm gonna spend my time mostly on X, but I did really enjoy Pearl as well. Did you end up seeing Pearl?
That one didn't make the cut of time invested. I still want to check it out, because yeah, like there was some good stuff in X. So yeah, I want to see
Pearl
where it goes.
Is so different too. Like,
is it really?
It's so, that's what makes me, that's one of those ones.
So you talk about that one a little bit before we move on here. Like, well, I feel like you focused on X.
Well, I definitely did, because I don't want to cheat too much, but I normally would give anyone a wedgie for doing a tie, especially this high up the list. But it's because, yeah, like, they both came out the same year, and Pearl just has a completely different tone and aesthetic. The Technicolor, it's so beautiful to look at, and it felt so fresh, and like something, like, there were moments of it that felt like the Psycho sequels to me, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
Like, it gets very weird. I think I liked Mia Goth even more in Pearl, because it's definitely more her movie. It focuses on her character. But that's one I need to see both of them again. But I did really enjoy both. I just know that X is more my speed as like a slasher horror fan. But Pearl did so many weird different things that this is another one where I'm like, man, it's so crazy. This is the type of movie you would have only been able to see at festivals like the Dark Bridges Film Festival 10 years ago. Like, this is it's crazy to think that this movie got a wide release and that it was successful. But yeah, I really enjoyed both of them. Maxine is definitely in the top 3 of my like most anticipated of 2023. There's a lot of cool shit coming out this year. But yeah, I recommend both of them. I'm sure anyone listening has seen at least one of them at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, shout out that gator kill.
Big time, big time. Definitely one of the best and coolest kills of the year. All right, we're getting down to the grittiest of nitties.
Are we in our top 3 nitties?
We're getting litty in our top. We got our Riz on right now.
We're rizzing it up. Yeah, I'm going hard on these White Claws now. This is classic Terror Table shit.
All right, so my number 3 is a film that we premiered at not that we premiered, that I got a chance to see at the was it at the I think it was the Fantastic, or was it Dark Bridges?
Dark Bridges was the one in June where we played.
Yeah. This was Chloe Okuna's Watcher.
It's on my honorable mentions.
Honorable mention, really?
Yeah, and isn't that fucking weird? Because I really enjoyed this movie. I talked about it very highly. I spoke very highly of it on the podcast, but it was a tough year, man. So many great movies. Talk about it. I love that it's this high on your list. I love it.
It's a tough year with how many good fucking movies came out. I just have to say overall that this movie blew me away from start to finish. I love, all the homages to just different genres or kinds of slasher films. Like there's a little bit of giallo in this. There's a little bit of that classic like Michael Myers-isms. There's
so much Hitchcock.
Yeah, Hitchcock. Yeah. I think it does such a great job of all those kind of things without feeling like it's just biting one particular thing. I feel like it has its own path. And I think Micah Monroe does a fantastic job. This is such a small film overall too. There's probably 10 overall like characters in this whole film, including like people just in the background.
Yeah.
Such a contained little film, and it plays into that very primal fear of just being watched, as the title implies, and just not knowing exactly who is watching you and why. So
yeah, no, it's a great movie. My honorable mentions, which we'll talk about afterwards when we also share listener sent in some of their lists. We'll talk about all that. But my honorable mentions is crazy this year. It was a great year for horror. So the fact that Watcher didn't make my list is pretty wild, because I did really enjoy that one. Awesome. So that was your number 4?
That was my number 3.
Very obviously, if you've been listening to the show, it's not shocking at all. But if you know me at all, it's shocking that it's this high. Terrifier 2.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I
wow.
I was a guy who liked I was fine with the first Terrifier. I thought that wasn't perfect, but there were moments in it that I thought were really fun. But I was certainly not a guy lining up to see a Terrifier 2. And man, this movie, I would have never guessed in a million years that a Terrifier movie would crack my top 10, let alone be this fucking high. But like Skinamarink, a part of my anticipation for the film stemmed from like the making and unbelievable success story that it has become. But with all that aside, I just think it's a great fucking slasher movie. I think it's nearly perfect. It's nearly perfected what so many other people have been trying to do over the years, and that's bring back this love for 80s slashers and the level of camp that can be found in those movies. And it just seems so tricky to be able to pull something like that off in 2022. And I think Damien Leone and like their whole team just absolutely crushed this. I thought I was just so in from the get-go. It's a 2.5-hour slasher movie, which is absurd, but I was never bored once. I don't think that the movie gives you a chance to be bored because it's just so absurd and over the top. But I think that we've received a new slasher icon with Art the Clown, and I think this movie cemented. Like even before this, there's so many people out there who have Art the Clown tattoos. They love the short film and All Hallows Eve, and they like Terrifier a lot. But Terrifier 2 was the one that I think it's undoubtedly like the reason why this is going to be a huge thing moving forward. Like we're going to see a Terrifier.
It's its own T2.
It totally is. This is a T2. But there's so many things about this that aren't my thing. Like I'm not a guy.
I know. I'm very surprised that this is this on your list at all for this year.
Really? Okay,
I can see it like as an honorable mention. I'm not saying that you didn't like it, but like the fact that it's on your list and this fucking high.
Yeah, dude, I had so much fun with it, and I watched it multiple times. It's a 2.5 hour slasher movie.
Wow, shit,
a sequel to a movie that I was okay with, and I watched it so close together too. Like the movie had me riding on a high, and I'm a guy I've also spoken about how I'm getting tired of like the neo synthwave, shit that people have been doing for a while. Like, I think Stranger Things, obviously, I still love Stranger Things, and there are many of these movies that really do a great job with it. I think The Guest perfected it, but Terrifier 2, like the opening with the midnight song, it just gave me chills. And there was about a month after I watched that movie that I was listening to that instrumental on repeat. I'd be driving, I was doing my Travis Bickle Batman, like driving through the rain in Vancouver, just cranking that midnight song.
I thought you're more of a Pete Davidson in what was that? King of
Staten Island.
Yeah.
Probably
just closing your eyes in traffic.
Yeah. It's so great. But like a few of the biggest 80s horror icons, like it's people like performances that come to mind is like Freddy and Chucky in particular. We're given these merchants of death and carnage who we should be rooting against, but there's never a moment where you don't want Art on screen. He's always fun watching him, pull out, literally carry around a bag of tricks and never knowing where it's going to go. And the fucking absurdity of like, when you think it's over, he's back and he's loaded up with bleach and salt. It's like, it's so absurd. It's so crazy. I had so much fun watching it. And that's why it's so high on my list. Is like, this is one of the movies I enjoyed watching this year the most. It makes no sense that I liked it as much as I did, but fuck, man, I thought it was a blast. I can't wait to see Terrifier 3, especially now that the movie's made so much money. You just know Damien Leone's he's gonna make the fucking Lord of the Rings of slasher movies, and I'm so excited about that because he does his own practical effects. He's a brilliant artist, and he has so much passion and love for this character, and it's just awesome. David Howard Thornton was so good. His performance is amazing, and I'm really excited to see where this franchise goes. I'll be one of the first in line for Terrifier 3, which is just crazy to think about. But yeah, Terrifier 2.
I just have to say, like, I've seen Terrifier as well, Terrifier 2. Not as big on it, but I really just enjoy, how much success it has. And what you'd mentioned about Art the Clown becoming like a horror icon that's such a hard thing to do, especially in this day and age where we have so much access to everything. It really seems like it's harder and harder to define yourself in this day and age in any sort of way, or stick out and create that kind of unique path. And I think that, exactly, like Art the Clown has managed to become part of the is it the lexicon or the iconography of horror now. It's embedded within that sort of thing, and is its own character. And it's awesome that it's getting more. Like I said, it's always great to have horror throwing up W's, whether you're a fan of it or not.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that was my number 3, Terrifier 2. I think now is the point where we're gonna have some crossover.
Yes, we have a bunch of crossover we have to talk about. So my number 2 is Prey, directed by Dan Trachtenberg.
Yes. So how should we work this? This was my number 5. Let's have you go first, and then I'll tack mine on afterwards.
Okay. So this was there's so much I want to say about this film, like, especially because we did talk about it before, but just having a chance to simmer like a crab in a bucket about it. I think this is fantastic. I think this is exactly much like Hellraiser and a couple other films that came out in the last couple years of franchises, like Candyman as well. Is really gave the kick in the pants this franchise needs, and I think that it contemporized it in the best way possible. We've seen Alien to a certain extent, as well as the Predator franchise several times, kind of try and bring itself up to date with what's what's cool and what's, what works in cinema today. And I feel like I know, Mitch, you did enjoy the Predator and certain, and then it's just
didn't enjoy. I fucking
you had
love
fun.
Shane Black's movie. I love that movie.
Do you, in terms of within the franchise,
This is a billion times better. Prey is so much better.
The Predator's like that goofball one of the whole franchise.
Yes.
But yeah, like Prey is whether it be a Predator film or any other kind, you could have inserted literally any kind of villain into this and it would have worked. I think the roots that it had, how it built characters and defined them and made you root for these characters and how they developed their skills, and seeing how the Predator even is so how would you put, like, primal overall, but still having those inklings of advancements where you go like, okay, I can see the roots of the original Predator film in this, how it it has montages and nods to all of the other films that came before it, like even having some like little nods to like the Predator 2 in here. It's just so much different stuff like that. It just, overall, this is a fantastic film. It does a great job of, we've watched so many films where they try and force feed you characters to a certain extent, and there's always kind of the strong female character. Like there's a good way to have these characters built up and there's a bad way, because it can seem so forced. But the way that they had with Amber Midthunder,
yes, so good.
like her character development, it was phenomenal watching, and just how smart it just overall was, and the aesthetic of the Predator. It just, overall, I have nothing but amazing things to say about this film. I want to see way more of this, and overall, we have a film that has a bear attack in it, where it's not even the most terrifying thing in the movie.
Yeah, that's definitely saying something.
Right.
All right, so like I pretty much echo everything that you just said about Prey. We've talked about that a lot over the course of the show. We know that we're huge Alien fans, but Prey was a movie that made me realize just how hard I ride for Predator. Like
it's gang shit now.
It is straight up gang shit, gang activity. But like, most people consider like the franchise of Predator to be shoddy at best, and I guess I'm not in that camp, because the only film in the Predator franchise that I can't get down with is Alien vs Predator Requiem, because you can't see any of it. But like, I'm an apologist for the first Alien vs Predator. There's moments in it that I think are entertaining. It's of course not a great movie. I love Predator 2, and
I think Predator 2 is fantastic, but what a wacky fucking sequel for Predator being this like groundbreaking film. Basically, Predator
flew off the rails so early on, like with Predator 2. So that I think that's part of the reason I can, give movies a pass. Like,
we got to Voodoo Shaman way faster in a franchise than we should have.
Exactly. Yeah, that should be the sixth or seventh installment.
Literally.
But like, and we've talked about this on the show in 2018. Even I think Shane Black's Predator was higher on my list than Prey is. But let me not get anything twisted. Prey is a better movie, and I'm one of those people. Prey came out, and there are people who are saying that they're like, it might be better than the original. I'm not part of that camp, but I do understand where they're coming from. Like, Prey was fucking mind-blowing. Like, we had no idea that this movie was going to be as good as it is.
And we were so hyped on the concept, because like we've mentioned before, like those period piece ones can be hard to do, and they fucking smoked it out of the park.
And it, like, there's a lot of really, really, really exciting shit happening in the Calgary film scene right now, and this is one of the first things that really put it on the map. I'm sure I'm missing some stuff, but like right now with Prey and The Last of Us, two huge properties that came out this year, or I guess Last of Us is 2023
within a calendar year.
Yeah, it's putting Calgary on the map for a place that was 5 hours away from Saskatoon, where where he started this podcast. And the setting of it is just gorgeous. Like you said, Amber Midthunder, she's a tremendous heroine. I thought she was so good, and her chemistry with Dakota Beavers adds so much to the stakes of the story. And I just think, yeah, it resulting in insane sequences and conflict with the Predator. And there's so many moments like that, but that's not even like the brutality and the action with the Predator is awesome, but it's the characters that really drew this movie into different territory that this franchise has never seen. I think that it did improve on some elements of the original, which I love. Like I still consider the original my favorite out of all of them, but this one did so many goddamn awesome things, and it was just brutally vicious. It was so entertaining, and yeah, I loved what Dan Trachtenberg did with this. And obviously, like, you know, I'm a big fan of his other film 10 Cloverfield Lane, and this is another movie where it's like, you know, with David Bruckner making The Ritual, I was like, I want to see everything this guy does. Like I just want him to do whatever he wants to do, and I'll be there for it. And that's how I feel about Dan Trachtenberg as well. So I loved Prey. You know, it's a blast, and I'm happy that it hit with the mainstream as well this year, because there was a lot of people that I spoke about the Predator with a lot of people who I would have never guessed I'd be talking about the Predator with. Like, this movie really broke through, and that was exciting. So yeah, Prey was my number 5. It was Buzi's number 3. 2. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jesus. On the White Claws, boys.
Yeah.
And by boys, I mean boy. There's only you and this guy over here, the devil on my shoulder. Okay. So now is it my turn?
You're at number 4. Yeah, because there's a bunch here that.
No, I'm at number 2.
Okay.
So my number 2 is Jordan Peele's Nope.
Yeah, that was my number 4. That was
your number 4. You lead off with it, then I'll tap in.
Okay, so I'd kind of mentioned to the build up of this, because Mitch knew right away, is I'd never gotten the Jordan Peele, like it hadn't hit me the way it hit everybody else, and this is finally when it really hit for me. And I think overall this is such a phenomenal, and I remember when we talked about it before, mentioning this, and I mean it in the best way possible, is like the Spielbergisms of this film and the grandioseness of it. And I love just the cosmic ideas that they tap into, and having kind of an original idea for how this goes. And, you know, it feels like it has a lot of homages to, you know, like the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You can have something, you know, or what is the famous one? War of the Worlds.
And that fight. There's one scene that's like straight out of Fire in the Sky, which is like a kind of, at this point, underseen classic.
And yeah, and like maybe this is a little bit of reach, but like it felt on that fantastical level in kind of the ways that like an Independence Day is almost.
It was Independence Day, but like my speed personally. That's in my notes where I was like, this is my version of Independence Day.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that the cast for this is phenomenal, and all the characters just did such a good job in fleshing out, you know, who they are. And I'd mentioned before, anytime I can hear that sweet Michael Wincott voice, I will take that as a huge W. I want him to narrate everything.
Where does your Michael Wincott love come from? Is it Alien Resurrection?
It is. There's a couple other, and you know, and I famously am not a huge Resurrection fan, but it's still Wincott. I
love how, like, you and I were both that type of guys where even if you're not a big fan of one of the Alien sequels, you've seen it way more than probably some big fans of it have.
Yeah, he was Johnner in Alien Resurrection, I believe is his name.
That's a name.
That definitely is. But yeah, overall, Nope did everything for me. And I haven't even fucking mentioned the random ass like monkey attack scenes in this. Like, to throw something like that into this story that has so many different layers of crazy shit going on already.
Yeah.
And it felt perfect. And I love the description of it being a neo-Western, like sci-fi horror movie. That's but yeah, overall, Nope was it's fantastic. Like, I want to watch it again, just talking about it. It wove such a beautiful story to like latch onto, and where it went with it, and just even kind of like the abruptness of the ending. Like, overall, I really enjoyed it. So Mitch, why is this where it is for you.
Yeah, that's first of all, that's so awesome to hear, because this, I know that, his other movies didn't really hit for you, and that's one of those things where I'm like, well, I just always want my homies to enjoy stuff. So it's like, it's great when something clicks. But I'm going to be completely honest. When I saw this movie, like, I spoke about it very positively on the show. Like, upon first watch, I was like, yeah, it was really good. 2 weeks ago, this was my number 9 on my list.
Really?
I rewatched it recently, and I'm not going to lie, this could very well be my number 1. A second watch skyrocketed this thing for me. I really liked it the first time, but on a rewatch, man, I've enjoyed all of Peele's output so far. The Get Out is fantastic. I was an Us apologist to a certain degree. There's a part of me that thinks that this might be his best movie, and the second watch
I love that.
And that's no shade to, because I like, especially Get Out. Like, I haven't watched Get Out in a couple of years. I need to watch that again. I just bought there's a book where it's the script, and it has all these annotations from Jordan Peele and like screen direction.
That's cool. Yeah,
it's really cool. And it was only
that's like the Kurt Cobain diary.
It's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. No, but yeah, and that's like on Amazon for like $15, and I love stuff like that.
That's actually like a super good deal too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the other, like, because I have the Inglourious Bastards one in my cart as well. I'm not sure if that one has the level of detail that this one has, but obviously I've been a fan of Jordan Peele since way before it was revealed that he's a horror fan, and then he eventually made an Oscar winning.
We go back like Mad TV days.
Mad TV, but really Key and Peele, like the Gremlins 2 sketch. There's so many Key and Peele sketches that me and Diego, that was a big part of like our friendship early on, was bonding over Key and Peele. So it was really special when Get Out came out, and then I really liked Us. But man, Nope is a movie that I understand. I understand why this is without a doubt one of those ones that's going to just grow in esteem over the years. It just has to. It's way too good of a movie for it to be kind of passed on this year. Like, there's a lot of people where I feel like they liked it, but it's kind of like, yeah, I like that, moving on with my life, kind of, which is fine. But I feel like there's so much shit in this that is just so brilliant. I read this, a couple of these movies that I'm talking about today, I've read the screenplay for, and Nope stands out as by far the best screenplay I read that was released last year. It's so good, so nuanced, and I don't know, I'm a big fan of the cast of characters that Peele created, and then what Keke Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya were able to do with those characters and really flesh them out. I have no patience for the Daniel Kaluuya vitriol that people are like. There's a lot of people out there like, he's lazy, he's not doing anything. It's like, no, he's a stoic character who really complements how animated Keke Palmer is, and I think together they're perfect. And the movie is just it's so much fun, but it's genuinely fucking scary at a couple parts, and I think it has a lot to say. It's some of the most gorgeous filmmaking I saw all year. I've gone so far as to like study what they've done with like there's a lot of these night scenes that just look so surreal and so beautiful. And then finding out that they like shot that all in the day, and they did a whole day for night thing for it. But yeah, there's just so many things to say and learn from Nope that much smarter people than myself are able to cover. I'm not going to be able to say anything that people haven't heard yet. Clearly you can see the influence from Spielberg, like I think especially Jaws, Close Encounters, E.T., and honestly even Indiana Jones. There's moments that feel so high adventure, and it's just a blast, and I love this movie. It's very strange. Like, this could very well be my number 1. But yeah, I absolutely love Nope. So that's my number 2.
Awesome. I guess it's time for my number 1. That is,
man, I first of all, I fucking love that this is your number 1, because this is one of the movies that just made my list today. Because I was like, I feel like I'm like, if I would have seen it, whatever, you go. Sorry, I'm getting excited.
You're allowed to be excited. Do you want to finish, or do you want me to talk about it?
I'm just gonna say that because I now know I pieced it together, and I think it was my number 9, and that was and that's a movie that it wasn't on my list at the beginning of the day today, and taking some time aside and really thinking about it, I was like, man, if I would have seen this movie more recently, it 100% would be on my list. So I need to make room for it here because it needs to be here.
I appreciate that.
So I'm excited that this is a crossover though. So take it away.
So I love that it's on our list in such different areas, but still made it. So yeah, my number one this year is Sean Ellis's The Cursed, gothic horror film centered around werewolves. It deals with it's a period piece as well. What's it originally called? It had a cool name originally.
8 for Silver, a way better name.
So cool. But yeah, it's dealing with like there's like a mythos of like a hound in like the 1800s that apparently like ate a shitload of people, and this is kind of like taking that idea of this. It's got like elements of something like, oh man, what would I describe it? Like there's elements of like The Thing in this.
Yeah. The makeup effects are unfucking real.
Unreal. I think as far as like a creature werewolf film, I love that it does something a little bit different. And you know how I kind of am very anal about like the rules of monsters in certain ways, and I thought that this one was a fantastic way to go about this. And it's so violent. They don't ever really shy away from showing you like the creature as well as the violence that it inflicts. And you know, it kind of unravels itself, has a little bit of a mystery unraveling as well as with them dealing with this creature. So I love just having a little bit of that multi-layer. You're not just dealing with just the creature. So overall, this was, I fucking love werewolf movies, and I just think that this is not only just like a good werewolf movie, and obviously like it's number one on my list, but like overall, this is just a fantastic like gothic horror film that I think a lot of people probably haven't checked out and definitely should.
Yeah, you covered pretty much everything I could say about this movie, but I'm so happy to see that it's this high on your list, because this is one of the biggest ones out of my whole, like, I wrote down every movie that really stood out to me this year, and The Cursed is one that really slid under the cracks. Like a lot of people, like I saw barely anyone talking about this movie this year, and I'm sure some people it's just not going to click for them because, like you said, it's extremely dark. It's a gothic as hell period piece it's a werewolf tale. So much fog, so much violence, so much my shit. This thing's got me written all over it. Honestly, with if I would have had time for a rewatch, it might be higher than 9. But it had a big enough impression on me 10 months ago to know that, like, when I saw it on my list again today in my honorable mentions, I was like, this has got to be in there. Like it needs to be at least somewhere on my list, because you know, you and I, we bonded over a love of creature features, and specifically werewolves. That's what started our friendship. Like, it was, you would come to see my band, we added each other on Facebook, and I think the first thing we talked about was werewolf movies. And
I think it was like right away we talked about like the Dog Soldiers and the Howling
and Ginger Snaps.
And Ginger Snaps.
Yeah. So seeing a werewolf movie in this day and age, and like, look, I'm a guy who for better or worse, I back up the Benicio del Toro, Anthony Hopkins Wolfman. Like I saw that movie 2 nights in a row the weekend that it came out, and that's a movie that's widely known as a piece of shit. I still really enjoy that movie. Of course, there's over the years I've revisited and I see some of the problems people could have, but the thing that I loved so much about it is the time period, and that it's a werewolf tale. That is like just such a soft spot for me. And this movie really, really tickles that. And like you had mentioned, it was originally called, like, because it came out at Sundance and it was titled 8 for Silver. And the producers who bought it and the distributors who bought it changed the name to The Cursed, which is, like, you know, the most boring and generic name imaginable for a horror movie. So it's like, no wonder this movie wasn't seen by a lot of people. But now it's available on Amazon Prime. So if people are wanting to check it out, like, this is what I love about our top 10s, is when we can highlight some ones that kind of, you know, flew under the radar.
Just to even like, sorry, just not even just the name part, but just the artwork for it, I feel like is really, it's lazy. and it's not their fault. It really does it's kind of the way where like Lovely Molly, the artwork for that, it throws you off.
Like you got to show people that the thumbnail is like, we got to show that it's a horror movie. How do we do that? Well, let's look at all these other bad posters. And like, it's even like the theatrical poster with like the fangs isn't great, but I do love the lore behind, like that's what separates this movie from other werewolf tales, is it delves into a different territory, which once again, there's plot holes in this movie. There are plot holes in most movies. It is a fantastical, scary period piece. It's about werewolves. Not all of it's going to make entire sense in reality, but I don't give a fuck anymore. There was a time in my life where I was and I remember famously the Erie International boys would make fun of me because I would always call out plot holes, because I was an angry fucking depressed nerd screaming at the cloud on the internet, where I was like, I
just something to yell about.
That part of me has changed as I've learned more about film, and I do credit them for calling me out. Like, that's an important thing, to call people out on their stupid shit. That was a stupid criticism that every movie on my list has fucking plot holes, but it's a movie. It is supposed to be entertaining, and I know it's a good movie. It's a good movie, but I'm also like, dude, I love Boyd Holbrook. Like, he's a guy who's he's like, doesn't do a lot in this movie, but that's kind of what I like about him. I like the stoic character. I like he
has a presence. He doesn't do a lot, but he has that presence.
But the thing that really stands out about The Cursed, among, one thing we haven't talked about yet, is that Sean Ellis not only directed this movie, he wrote it and he shot it. He was the DP on this thing. And I think that like, he obviously, so this is entirely his vision. And that's what I respect about it. I think that, some of the story got sidelined by his million obligations on that set. Like, he was wearing so many hats, but the fact that it came out this good is so commendable. And I think and another thing that, even current stuff that I'm writing right now, I'm delving into things that I normally have issues with. Dream sequences. I normally get annoyed by that. This movie did a really good job of using dream sequences to tie characters together and to tie the whole scenario together. And I really, really enjoyed it. Mary Riley was great in it as well. I wish it was called 8 for Silver, because that's a cool name. Yes. It's a cool horror movie.
Hell yeah.
Oh, okay. So that was your number one. All right,
I'm done. Last one. Yeah.
Obviously, no surprise. Everyone knows, and I'm going to build it up. My favorite horror movie of the year was Barbarian. You knew that from the get-go. I'm going to try and do a better job this year at not showing my cards so early on, but this one just excited the shit out of me. Written and directed by Zach Kreger, who is he gained notoriety from being in the sketch comedy group, The Whitest Kids You Know. The other movie that he wrote and directed, I think he directed it, was Miss March, like a really shitty.
What was Miss March? Was that that wasn't like the sex drive one where he wanted to bang Miss March, is it?
Yes, I think it was. I've seen this movie, but it was, and he co-stars in it too. Miss March 2009. Yeah, and I think it has the meta score on IMDb is 7. It's one of those movies that it didn't do well, and it's
Miss March was just a miss altogether.
It was a big miss, but I learned all of this well after I had seen and loved Barbarian. So it's just a cherry on top of the cake to see that this guy hasn't always had it figured out, but he had this script that he believed in, like Barbarian, this wild script that sets up such an enticing sequence in the first half of the movie, and then completely flips it around and shocks you and turns into a completely different movie. It was a movie that would be impossible to, put stakes in. Like, I kind of understand why a lot of the studios turned it down. Like, notoriously for years, he's been shopping this thing around, and it was rejected by everyone. And then it finally got into the right place and was released. And this was like the shocking movie this year. This was the one where it was like, everyone was talking about, you need to see it in a theater. Try and not think, don't read about it. Don't look any more into it. Don't watch the trailers. Just go and see it. That's always exciting for me. It felt like an event. And the only thing I knew about it was that it was a shocking movie, but I didn't expect this. And if you say you did, you're a fucking liar. There's no way you can see where this movie is going. And it starts off with such a simple premise, and that's inherently creepy from the jump, given the circumstances of just like the idea of a double booked Airbnb topped off with the absolutely brilliant misdirect of casting a guy like Bill friggin Skarsgård as the dude in the Airbnb. He's seamlessly creepy. The guy, he just got off the hottest horror movie of, you know, the last decade with It. He's Pennywise. It's just, there's no way you can see where it's going. And to have all of that literally crushed into pieces at the halfway point of the movie was the biggest serotonin boost of the year for me. Like,
you needed that. You needed that.
And I'm gonna, you know, speak a little bit more candidly about this one because we've spoke, especially if you've been listening to the Terror Table, we've talked about it so much that you should have seen it by now. I'm not going to spoil the whole thing, but I'm not going to dance around that, you know, Justin Long is in this movie, which was kind of a surprise in and of itself. Like, I saw this movie with Jason Hamill. Also, I gotta say, worst theater I've been in all year was the Barbarian Theater. We moved twice. We moved seats because people were fucking. There was a full blown argument between a couple right beside us during the movie, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
Wait.
Like,
what were they arguing about?
I don't even know. They came in 10 minutes late, 10 minutes into the movie, and they sat down right behind us. And they were like eating they had their phone out and they were like trying to find something. So it was just disruptive as hell.
Right.
And then even when we moved to a different spot and the people in front of us were talking at like full volume, and I actually was getting angry. So I did the Mitch thing where I called him out. I said, "Can you shut the fuck up, please?" at like full volume. I said,
I love that you had the please. That's like the most Canadian thing ever.
No, what I truthfully did was I said, "Hey, can you guys like maybe save the conversation for after the movie? That'd be awesome. Thank you."
Yeah.
And then they got the point. But then they pulled out their phone and they started communicating with their screens. And I was like, "You got to be kidding me. Like, this is brutal." Right. And the movie still ended up being my favorite movie of the year. That shows how powerful. It
pushed through.
Yeah, it was just so much fun. I've watched it a couple times now, read the script, and it's brilliant, man. And you can just tell that Zach Kreger, one of my biggest influences is Sam Raimi, and you see that throughout Barbarian. So of course I connect to it personally. Like, it's just so much my thing. And I think at this point, Justin Long is a horror icon, which is hilarious to say. He's had so many seminal roles in like big horror movies, and this might be the crown jewel. I do understand why some people didn't connect with it. They liked the first movie that it was setting up and then felt gypped when it was completely changed. But I just had such a fun time from start to finish. And I think this movie just has the cojones on this movie to go the directions that it went in. Were so funny. We also haven't talked about it yet, but 2022 was the year of the spooky grandma. How many spooky grandmas did we fucking see? There's even I watched another one recently. God, I can't even remember what it was, but there's another spooky grandma. I'm like, what?
I think there's movie just called like The Grandmother or something
there,
as well.
There's something like that. But I watched another one recently. I can't because it's a spoiler. But there's another 2023 movie that has a spooky grandma in it. I'm like, what is going on right now? Why is it like, what's the
It's Medea Family Vacation.
Yeah, no. But yeah, I don't know. It's I feel like if this movie didn't have the sense of humor that it has, it wouldn't have worked as well. And it's just such a bizarre string of events, and I loved every second of the ride. It was my personal favorite horror movie of the year, and I think that this is one that it has the makings of a classic. I think I'm going to be revisiting this one for years to come, and I just love that it exists.
I will say that I can attest to some of these things that, like, while it didn't make my list and I wasn't a huge fan of it, I do see how it is a very well crafted film, and with the scares in it and the ability to use like light as just this, you know, a ramp up of fear in these small areas where these cramped areas, and your characters aren't allowed to figure out what's going on, so you feel just as rushed as they do. And you know, just the violence in this, and you know, when they do show something, it's fucking wild. And when they reveal something,
sucking on a titty,
and like, mommy needs to give milky,
baby. It's so funny. It's so funny, man. Like, oh god, it's so good. I was a very, very big fan of Barbarian, and you know, we're now recording this a week after the news dropped that like Zach Kreger, like he went from being at the bottom, like, man, his movie Miss March had like a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, felt his career was done, and he's been shopping this thing around trying to write it. And 10 years later, he gets it off the ground and it hits. And now it's like they were throwing money, like millions and millions of dollars at his script that no one had even read yet. And now he stuck to his guns and said, no one's touching it until it goes to market, and then everyone can read it. Then we'll talk. And he did that, and it got picked up for double the budget. They haven't even announced it, but they said it's an 8-figure deal. This guy, he's going to make another great horror movie, and he's going to have money behind it this time. And he has Final Cut. It is unreal. What kind of what trend he's setting with this. Like, it's very exciting as a horror fan to know that people like him can get these bonkers ass ideas out on screen and have Final Cut. It's unreal. I love it. And I can't wait to see what he does next. Weapons is what it's called right now. I know that.
Okay. I'm surprised there's not like an 80s action movie called Weapons.
Yeah, there probably is. And it's probably a working title too. All I know about it is he said that it's all that has been revealed is that it's being compared to Magnolia, which is like,
oh, wild.
It's insane to think about a horror movie version of Magnolia. But either way, I'm just so on board with whatever he does. Yeah. And the other thing too, last thing I'll say about it is I forgot how scary it was because of how much fun I was having during it. But Tara has COVID right now, and she was like, what should I be watching?
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so I told her, I was like, have you seen Barbarian yet? Like, it's on Disney Plus. And she watched it, and we had a good conversation afterwards, but she was like, that was fucking terrifying. And I'm like, I forgot that it's actually it. And then I watched it again. I'm like, this movie's scary as shit for a while.
Yeah.
And totally then it gets bonkers. And then even some of the wackiness is scary because it's so out there. It's so weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, Barbarian was easily my favorite movie of the year. Loved it.
And we all saw that coming, but we were here for the ride of it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to try and be a little more diplomatic this year. And also,
you got to be more discreet.
Yeah. No, it was great. All right. Well, that was great. Another successful top 10 of the Tear Table. We did it. Air high five. Yeah. All right. So honorable mentions. All right. So leading off honorable mentions, I want to give a special shout out to a Saskatoon-made horror comedy that is not out yet, but will be eventually. And that's Welcome to Kitty Town, which was directed by Doug Luchek, who he runs Reyes in Saskatoon, the film school that Buzi's alumni.
Shout out Doug.
Yeah, Doug. It was written by Robert Mann, who's a friend. I worked with him a while ago at an old warehouse, and the cinematography was done by Damien Kent. It was a locally made feature-length film. Robert co-wrote it with Darren Zimmer, and Robert also stars in the movie as Ted. So do you know Robert? Yeah, you know Robert. Yeah. We've talked about this. So
we actually both of them, Darren and Robert, came in to do a scene with us, and we had to like direct them for it, and it was from a piece of the Kitty Town script. So this has been around for quite a while.
No, they've been working on it for a long time, and obviously it was a huge year for, with us with the Druid's Hand, and then also having Welcome to Kitty Town coming out. With all I knew about it was that Robert was involved and that it was called Welcome to Kitty Town. And when you hear that name, you don't think horror, but it's essentially the way that I would describe it is it's like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles meets Pixar's Onward meets Cormac McCarthy's The Road. So it's like a post-apocalyptic movie about people dying from what they call sludge, but it's a fart comedy. But I was so pleasantly surprised by how much fun I had with that movie. Like, Robert he's such a character. He's such a nice guy. He offered some story editing. I gave him the script for the Druid's Hand, and he offered his insights on it. And I think that he helped the script. So he's technically a part of the Druid's Hand crew as well. But this is a feature-length film, and I do enjoy my fart comedies. I like my toilet humor, and I was legitimately blown away by how much fun I had with this movie. And I think that it's genuinely good. And I know we played Fog Fest with them in Newfoundland, and they just keep killing it on the festival circuit. But this is one to keep an eye out for, because Robert specifically is like, he's he's a Pixar character come to life. And
He's awesome,
in a horror movie, like he's so funny and so charming, and like there's so much about him that I see in that character. Obviously he wrote it. He really leaned into what he knows. And I don't know if you've seen it yet, Buzi, but it's good. I really enjoyed
I haven't seen it. I saw parts of it when we were in school. They'd show us as they were editing, but
well, I just
try to check it out.
And the reason, obviously, I live across the country now. Doug was nice enough to, like, he reached out after the Saskatoon Independent Film Awards, where he was finally able to see The Druid's Hand, and he said some really nice things. I asked for a screener. That's how I was able to see it. So I wish I could have been there at their premiere, but fuck, man, I genuinely loved it. It was a lot of fun. So that whole team should be very proud. The other films that I have on my honorable mentions, I gotta wet my whistle here.
Your whistle?
Resurrection. Did you watch Resurrection?
Yes,
I with Rebecca Hall.
What a mind fuck of a movie.
To me, did you end up seeing Men? Alex Garland's Men?
I started watching it and I just ended up falling asleep because I was a sleepy boy.
It's not your thing. I know enough about you, and even me, like, I love that guy's first two movies, and Men didn't do a lot for me. And I'm happy people enjoyed. The people who enjoyed it, I'm happy for you, but wasn't really my thing. Resurrection touched on a lot of similar themes, and I think nailed it. Like, that was one that's my first one that's like, that was straddling number 11 and 10. Like, it was Scream or that, and I don't know why I felt like I needed to come to Scream's defense. But Resurrection was very wild. It's on Shudder. The Black Phone, I did really enjoy The Black Phone.
There was a lot of hype around that film this year.
Yeah, it did really well, and I know a lot of people really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It just didn't make the cut. But it barely, it was a fun movie. Well, actually, was it fun? It was fun, but it was with some difficult subject matter.
Yeah, it kind of wrapped up in a like a whimsical way.
Yeah, I don't
strange.
Any movie that has a actor of Ethan Hawke's stature playing that, like a child molesting murderer, is pretty fucking wild. So big shout out to The Black Phone. I did enjoy it. Fresh was one that came out at the beginning of the year that I feel like kind of just got skimped over and left behind, but that one with Daisy Edgar Jones and Sebastian Stan, I'm not a big cannibalism guy. This movie plays with some of that, but it was very intense and comedic at times, but that was a good one. You Won't Be Alone it's kind of strange that one's not on my list because that's so up my alley. But there were other things that kind of connected with me more this year, but You Won't Be Alone, I believe that's on Crave in Canada, if you want to check that out. Hellbender, it's on Shudder, and it was made by...
I haven't had a chance to check that one out. I really want to.
I think that one might be your speed. It's made by... Do you know much about the Addams family? Like, not the famous Addams, like...
No.
They're a family of filmmakers, like a husband, wife, and daughter, and they've done a couple movies now. Like The Deeper You Dig is one that they did together. They do these micro budget, like very small budget horror movies, but they have really good concepts, and they work together as a family with a small crew. And I think Hellbender is the best thing they've done together so far. It is like an occult witch tale, but set in modern times. And I think my favorite part about it was the score. Like it's like kind of set around a band, and the band's music was super. Like, I have it on my Spotify now. I listen to it all the time. Hellbender is really cool. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
I liked it. I know a lot of people hated it, but it has a bunch of Sam Raimi shit in it. I had a lot of fun watching that movie. I know it's kind of a mess, but I enjoyed it. Watcher, of course. Bodies surprised me. Smile, I was very surprised by how much I actually ended up enjoying Smile. I know that was like the most successful horror movie of the year, so I feel like no one needed to come to the defense of Smile today. But that one could have very well made my list. It surprised me, especially how wild the ending gets. Like, it's got a very, very wild ending.
Yeah, I think everyone who even brought that up, like any guests we had that brought up Smile, was just how surprising it was.
Yeah, Yeah, it's definitely my favorite parts of the movie are in the back half, but there's some really good scares. I'm really excited to see what Parker Finn does next because he definitely crushed that movie. And last but not least, a movie that was straddling also my 10 should have theoretically made my list, but Speak No Evil, which is on Shudder, and it's just the bummer movie of the year. It's that
the big sad.
If you're a fan of movies like Funny Games, or last year a movie that was on my top 10 was Coming Home in the Dark, these really depressing movies that kind of break down dynamics between relationships and what people do in the face of extreme stress and duress. And it's very dark. It's not like I'm joking when I say it was a knee slapper. It's a very depressing fucking movie. But Speak No Evil stood out to me this year. Yeah, those are my honorable mentions. What about you, Buzi?
Awesome. Okay, I got a couple honorable mentions, and some of these are films that took a lot of shit this year. That's the kind of the first one I want to mention specifically. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't think it was that bad. I think that people really shit on that film, and there's some really cool stuff in there with Leatherface. I just overall I understand where some people are coming from. It doesn't fit canonically very well, and a lot of the story doesn't make sense, but I think that it had enough cool visuals to make it like a decent movie. I'm gonna rewatch it.
I'm genuinely surprised that one's not on your list, because I remember you really enjoyed it.
I was thinking about it.
Yeah, I had fun with it. I'm like kind of very neutral on that one. But yeah, cool. So Texas Chainsaw, what else you got?
I got this is directed by Nico van den Brink, Malak. I think that is that's a film on Shudder right now that a lot of people should check out. That's kind of like the pagan kind of mythology kind of ritual film. Very cool. Very cool. I think you like that one.
I watched that one preparing for this, and yeah, that one has some really, really intense sequences. That one's definitely worth a watch if you have a Shudder account.
For sure. Another one I'm going to mention that's also from Shudder, and it is featuring our boy Josh Rubin in it, is A Wounded Fawn, directed by Travis Stevens.
Wild movie.
Very wild, very, very strange. If you're into something that is a little bit out there, you kind of have to ride with it a little bit. It starts out fairly tame overall, and just turns into a very bizarre little film. I think people are going to really like it. Josh Rubens, I believe. Yeah, Josh Rubens. He is so good at bringing little nuances to all of his characters. I think that he is just overall such a fantastic actor, and did a really good job of bringing a strange element to kind of a classic idea.
You had to do some pretty brutal things in that movie, like that. Yeah, that's one. See, for example, too, when we're talking about honorable mentions, let's be crystal clear that like there are so many great movies that we saw this year that we just actually didn't write down in time, and we'll probably kick ourselves later and be like, "Fuck, we should have mentioned that," because that was a good one too. Wounded Fawn is definitely one of those for me as well.
I have two more I'm going to mention here quickly. So the first one is Scare Package 2, Rad Chad's Revenge. Great continuation.
Yeah, super fun.
Yes, that I think that's the best way to explain it. And we don't get as a horror community, like our version of fun is kind of few and far between, because a lot of the stuff that does, maybe it's just me being my crotchety self, but there's a lot of the horror stuff that adds comedy doesn't really, like a lot of times it's a miss. We do have some great films in the catalogs of comedy horror, but like I feel like there are a lot of misses within that. But they do such a great job of understanding us as an audience and giving us like these ideas. You're feeding us the back, and they're like, look how funny or silly this concept is, and it's great. It's perfect.
I want to give it adding on to that shout out, because like Paper Street Pictures had a huge year this year. They released 4 different films, and all of them have landed up on Shudder, which is a huge feat. And obviously we love the team behind Paper Street Pictures, Sean Talley, who's been on the show. Love Sean, and Aaron B. Kuntz, of course. But that's the thing though, is like a lot of movies, they poke fun at, they think that there's a lot of these comedies that comment on horror movies that don't hit the way that Scare Package does. So like, even if not every segment lands for you, you would be hard pressed to make an argument that at least they weren't conceptualized and built together by people who actually understand this genre. Scare Package 2 was a lot of fun, and it pulled me out of a pretty dark place right before the holidays. My flight was canceled to Saskatoon a couple times, and it had just dropped on Shudder, so that was when I was able to see it, and it was really fun being in that world. But like I know when we saw Scare Package 1 together in Saskatoon when we first met Aaron, like that theater was electric, and it was just so much fun. And I really
those are the kind of experiences that you like. They're few and far between, but you really live for those experiences. Yep. Yeah, it was such a natural, like everybody was just,
man. And Bryson was there. Yeah, Bryson was there, and Bryson's laughter was like, it added to how much we loved that movie, because it was like his reaction was so amazing. But that's the thing though, is like, especially with Scare Package 2, the thing that I noticed is like, they're diving into, they of course want these movies to be entertaining for people who aren't just us. Yeah. And I think that's what Scare Package 2 did really well, is like they're going into like Saw movies now and stuff like that, where it's like people who aren't even horror fans, they know, the concept, you understand the point of it, and they're throwing it, like, of course, the fun ass part with the bees and all that shit. Like it's just really, it's really fun, and it's really inspiring seeing what they're doing over there. I still haven't seen Blood Relatives, but that's one I really, really still, it's at the top of my list to see. Scare Package 2, very fun.
Yeah. And the last one I'm going to mention, because I don't think it's truly a horror film. It kind of sits in that weird in between, but we're always got our toes in that. I want to give a big shout out to Troll, which is basic. It's basically Godzilla 1998. This is a Roland Emmerich movie in disguise. Yeah. Mitch, you have to watch this. I think you're going to love, like, the amount of things where I'm like, hey, that's like an homage to Jurassic Park. That's an homage to literally like Godzilla 98. Yeah. Anyway, super fun film. I definitely recommend people check it out. It's that larger than life. Yeah, like it I don't know any other words to describe it other than like Godzilla 98.
And that's what's so fun. That's like, I love that you compare it to Godzilla 98, because Godzilla 98 is a ripoff of so many other things.
Yeah.
But it's got such a unique style that, when Roland Emmerich touches something, it inherently, it almost like takes over whatever it's trying to replicate and turns it into its own thing. But
yeah,
I will try and watch that one for our upcoming episode with Nathan Jones. I'll do that.
Hell yeah. And I think now we can, Mitch, have you thought of any more, or are you good?
I haven't had time to think of any. There was a lot of movies I really enjoyed this year, but
okay. Yeah. I just wanted to, before we get on to, because we asked our listeners, if there are any of you guys left, to send us in or let us know what your favorites of the year are. So I have a couple pulled up if we want to talk about those and judge everyone the way that we classically do.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So a couple are just, these are, first off, we're going to start with just comments from our Instagram. Our buddy O said Terrifier 2, fuck everything else. So he feels very strongly about Terrifier 2. Our friend Lindsay Wilkins from Schlock and Awe said Hatch, Barbarian, Sissy, and Fresh.
Hatching. She's got to be talking about Hatching.
Yes,
the one that we showed it. Yeah, which I forgot about that one. That was
I did too. Yeah, that was a great movie. That was a very fun movie and a very like peculiar.
Yeah, I fought for that one for the Dark Bridges. That was that was a super fun one. Really enjoyed that one.
Next one up is another former guest of the show, Cassie. She really enjoyed Nope, X, and Barbarian. So now I'm gonna
good taste.
Hell yeah! So now we're gonna go over to our DMs. People were hitting up our DMs and sending us pictures of their feet. We never got feet pics ever, did we? We've made so many jokes about getting them, and I don't think we ever did. Anyway, our homie and Druid's Hand alumni Derek said that the best. He said, "Hey, fuck boys, best of 2022 was Black Phone." So he really enjoyed Black Phone.
That's good. I'm happy to hear that. Love Derek.
And we got our big love for Derek. We got our homie Daniel Epler over at the Cobwebs podcast. His list. I
haven't seen any of this, so I'm excited. I feel like a listener.
You are a listener. All right. So he sent me like a picture from his.
Is it feet? Please tell me it's feet.
Fuck, it's not feet. It's a goddamn letterboxed. But here, I'm gonna look. So, okay, he did a top 12. Coming in at number 12, fucking Texas Chainsaw. There we go. Finally hit on somebody's list. Here we fucking go. Number 11, VHS 99. I forgot. Actually, that came out this year.
Have I? I don't think I ended up talking about it.
I thought you did.
I think I spoke to you separately.
Maybe we just talked privately about it. We were kind of lukewarm on that one.
I was very bummed out by it. Yeah, I'm happy that Daniel loved it though, because he was saying that he liked all the segments. That's great.
Number 10 is one I haven't seen. The Glorious.
Oh yeah, or Glorious. Yeah, Rebecca McKendry's film about it's a Lovecraftian glory hole. I know.
Yeah. All right.
I know it seems like something that'd be up your alley. It's on Shudder. I still haven't seen it yet, but yeah, I know a lot of people had fun with that.
The next one is The Outside.
The Outside? I haven't seen that one.
I haven't even heard of it. Yeah, me either.
Well, we're poser ass horror fans.
We're terrible. Number 8, he has The Munsters, which I forgot about that one too. Robert Zombington's The Munsters. Did you watch it?
Yes.
How is it?
Don't ask me.
No comment. No. Okay. All right. Next one.
me, Jesse, and Jason watched it when we were down in LA for Screamfest. Rob Zombie shit's not my thing.
Fair.
But yeah, I love that Daniel loved it though, because we know how much we love Daniel at the Terror Table.
We do so much.
That's why I want feet pics.
Number 7 is The Invitation. I hadn't got a chance to check that out yet.
Yeah, because I remember Daniel really championing that one, and it's one of the that was like a mainstream release that I missed. Fuck.
Number 6, we have Hellraiser, of course, which was on both of our lists. Number 5, another one I haven't seen. Graveyard Rats.
Oh, Graveyard Rats was awesome, dude. You'd love that. That's in the Cabinets of Curiosity, Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. It's like, because they have separate, every episode's a different story, dude. And Graveyard Rats is Buzi 101.
I'll have to check this out. Yeah,
it's on Netflix.
Sure,
you gotta watch it. That's one of those ones that you should be watching tonight. Like, that's a Buzi. You will love that.
Honestly, I think I'm gonna do that, but like, since we've had our conversation tonight, I feel like I just want to watch Prey right now. Anyway, this is
Prey should have been higher on my list.
Number 4 for him was Pearl.
Yes.
Number 3 was Terrifier.
Hell yeah. 2. Me and him have 2 in common. We have both
you got more than that.
And Terrifier at 3.
Number 2 and number 1.
Hey, wait. Stop. You cut out at number 2. I couldn't hear you there.
Oh, okay. Number 2 was Barbarian.
Oh, sick. Okay.
Can you guess number 1?
Is it Nope?
No,
I don't know.
Not.
X
is his number 1.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Great list.
Yeah. So thank you for sending that in. All right. So the last one we have for Instagram ones is from our big homie, J. Luke.
J. Luke, shout out.
I haven't pre-read this, so we're flying into this. Well, Nope made my number 1 of my top 10 list. So I would say I love the fuck out of that movie. Then X and Pearl are such a treat from Ty West and Mia Goth this year. I'm tempted to do a double feature night with those movies again. Those 2 plus Barbarian and Prey made this amazing year for women leads in horror movies. Shout out to Glorious too.
Damn, aside from Glorious, it sounds like me and Jay have the same list.
Yeah. I thought he meant Inglourious Bastards and was just randomly throwing in Glorious.
Yeah, that'd be a J. Luke thing.
Could you imagine just randomly throwing out like shout outs to movies from other years?
Yo, shout out Casablanca, dude. Fucking deuces.
And our last message we had here is from Bryson. And,
is this an email one?
Yes.
Sick.
So this is our last one for the night, and I haven't pre-read this one either, but it looks like a juicy one. So thank you, Bryson, as always, for your juicy messages.
The best.
Hello, my favorite terrorists.
Oh, God.
It's your longtime terror tot, Bryson, with my top 10 list for 2022. All right. So number 10 is a movie that we haven't talked about at all, Mitch. The Sadness.
I did not fuck with the Sadness. Just is not my thing. But
no,
I know
it's a zombie film, right?
Yeah. Well, it's very extreme. I've seen.
Is this one that's based on a comic?
I don't know. It feels like it's based off of Crossed, which is the comic that took everything
That's the one
too
I'm
far.
thinking of. Yes,
Yeah, no,
that's
it's
what I'm
very
thinking of.
similar. We played it at I think Star or Saskatoon Fantastic like last year, 2 years ago. Either way, yeah, wild movie. I know Jay Luke. I know a lot of people who love that movie. That's just not my thing.
Yeah. Number 9 is Smile.
Nice.
Another one that we've talked quite a bit about. The more I think about it, like what a decent different. Number 8 is The Menu.
Menu is dope. In my top 10 of my other movies.
Oh yeah, that's right. Number 7, Terrifier 2. So we have a lot of crossover for like everybody has a good chunk of like we all enjoy the same sort of stuff here. Number 6 is Nope. Number 5, X. 4 is Barbarian. So this one's wild right here. 3, Scream. So Bryson really liked Scream this year.
Hell yeah,
I love that. I love that.
We need someone to. I know Steven Fisher also really loved it from Let's Talk About Stuff. So I'm happy to see. Yeah, Scream's fun.
No, I'm happy to see some love for that. Number 2, which is identical to my list as well. He has Prey as his number 2, and his number 1 is Hellraiser. That's fucking awesome. Nice. I did not realize how much Bryson liked Hellraiser this year. He must be extra horny.
Good, yeah, he's definitely a horny boy right now. I love that.
And then there's a little message at the bottom, so let's read that off here. And he says, "Then as always, I would love to give a shout out to things I discovered because of the podcast." Oh, this is amazing. I love hearing stuff like this. There are a couple that stick out that I had never seen before, like Magic or Rogue, but nothing compares to the insanity of Prophecy.
Yes.
Yeah. That bears the best thing I've seen in a while. Such a hilariously fun side once the chaos starts. Also, I'd like to give Buzi a shout out for getting me to watch Blades. That movie was just as fun. Much love, you guys. I'm extremely proud of your work you guys have done, like the Druid's Hand, while still keeping this podcast going. I hope it never goes away. It's still my favorite to listen to. Love, Bryson. That is so nice. Sweet. That is so sweet. We love you too, Bryson, and thank you for the awesome message and fantastic list.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, thank you for that. That's the kind of stuff we need to keep going.
That's the kind of stuff that keeps me happy.
Yeah,
just overall as a person. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, once again, yeah, thank you everyone for listening to the show. It was another great year. I know that this was the year that we had the least amount of output. Bryson even touched on it. Lots of things changed. I moved across the country. The film took up a lot of time, but I hope everyone sees that we didn't ditch the Terror Table as soon as things got busy. We're still trying to make it work, and we're still having fun doing it, and we still are going to continue to have fun doing it. So yeah, we got lots of fun stuff planned for the new year. I know we're gonna do a couple new metal episodes.
So excited for New Metal March.
Buzi said my favorite. He texted me. He's like, I'm gonna put so much fucking new metal in those episodes. We're gonna get a cease and desist. So look forward to that. Yeah. We're going to talk about folk horror movies. We're going to just keep the conversation on horror, because it's once again, we've been doing this for a long time. It's a fun time to be a horror fan, as always.
Hell yeah.
Got anything else you want to say before we close up tonight, Buzi?
You know what? I know that we're like nearly into February right now, and this will probably get released right around February, but like, I hope everyone is having a fucking rock ass solid 2023, and may this be the summer of George for everybody.
Yes.
Sorry, I just got into watching Seinfeld, so like I'm doing all these references to a show that's fucking been gone for like a million years.
That's awesome though. You have so much shit to look forward to.
Dude, I watch Seinfeld like all the time now.
It's the best. It's so fucking funny. And then you can get into Curb. I got into Curb when I moved out to Vancouver, and it's the best.
I think that's probably going to be next on my list.
Curb is fucking hilarious.
Mitch, do you have any sage advice or wantings to say to all of the terror tots?
Terror tots, yeah. No, just 2023. It's the year to make our dreams come true, baby.
Yeah, keep your stick on the ice.
Yeah, keep your stick on the ice. Let's it'll be a great year. But once again, thank you everyone for listening. And we will see you guys all next time on the Terror Table. Thanks for listening.
Peace.